And we are live.
Booyah.
Boom. So yeah, I'm just getting myself a little bit ready here.
Okay.
Hmm. I tried to go back to the old way of doing things as far as using the laptop for the streaming instead of the phone, because had I been using the laptop last week, the episode would have sounded a bit better.
Mm.
But I tried, to get on I got onto StreamYard through the laptop, and it just, I just kept literally, I was like moving around and setting stuff up, and I would glance over at the monitor, and I'd just be frozen like
Wow.
30 seconds behind, and then I'd see me kind of go just really slow to catch up, and I
To
thought
catch up.
that's not gonna work. And really, as far as I know, that you had said afterwards that with the delay we were kind of stepping all over each other. Did you listen to the episode?
Mm-mm. Not yet.
It wasn't bad as far
Oh,
as us stepping on each other.
okay.
No more than normal, I would say.
Well, part of that though is going to be helped because we're able to see each other, and so
Yeah.
I'm sure that will help us.
We'll have to
And then
we'll
yeah,
have to there's I think I've talked about it before, but there's an old Monty Python sketch where Michael Palin is supposed to be he's on TV and he's announcing something to people, and for some reason he feels like he has to make sure that folks understand when he's just pausing between lines and when he's done, because he doesn't want people to get up and go to the bathroom while he's still in the middle of things. So he tells them, all right, so when I'm pausing and I'm going to go to the other line, what I'll do is this. And so during the speech, he'd say, blah, 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 blah.
that's funny.
That would be funny for us to do that. All right, let me make sure my mic's on. Are you recording in Audacity? Pop, pop, pop. Yes, it's recording.
Yes, I am recording as well.
Okay, so I get my tablet open. I just started the third story in Superman number
Yeah, so did
5.
I'm about 4 or 5 pages from done.
All right. Well, let's just worry. We'll do the feedback episode, and who knows? You saw all that feedback. It may end up
Right.
being so much feedback that it gets split into 2 episodes. I really don't want to do that.
Well, I was going to say we can hold the feedback to 35, 40 minutes. And then
Yeah.
if we have more, go ahead and record another one or hold it until another time and then
Yeah.
talk about the 2 stories we did talk about. Or,
That's cool.
you know, rather than taking all of the feedback and just going through it and it being like an hour and 45-minute show. I mean, that's so long
Yeah.
compared to what we normally do. So,
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Okay, so I got the feedback pulled up. I got the
what
show notes pulled up.
what do the shows normally run?
Oh, good Lord. Well, I think I joked around last week that you can always tell which is our first episode in the block because it's always the longest, but they average between 30 to 45 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think
What
we've
I
ever had any one longer than 45 minutes.
I'll set up a timer for 35
Cool.
for this first block of feedback and whatever. We'll just see.
Well, so far we don't have anybody joining us live, but if you are watching this video in the future, welcome to episode 14 of the Superman Super Show live. I feel like there should be some music here. I made some coffee this evening, and it's super strong.
All right. Looks like a pretty big mug.
It makes me do that. There we go. We got one person watching us. I do want to say that those first two stories in Superman #5, I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. I did too. They're starting to have a different feel to them.
They really do, and it's we'll I'll save it for the episode. There's a couple things I want to say about both of these stories, but I'll save it for the episode. Doug, how are you doing, my man?
Hey, Doug.
I'm gonna try to move my pop filter here just a little bit. Doobie doobie doo. Do 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 do. Okay. All right. Let me really quick just put out on Twitter that we are live.
Okay. We don't have show notes to go off of this time, do we?
What's that?
We don't have show notes to go off of this time.
We do. Did I not send them to you?
Well, I looked at the doc and it hadn't been updated.
Oh,
but you're
yeah,
not using the doc, are you?
Yeah,
you're
that's my fault. I created a new
Google. Okay.
I created a new doc. Let me
okay.
You make sure you got access to it. Doobie doobie doo. All right, you got Twitter open or something? I mean, I sent you an email to give you access, but I can also send you the link. Okay.
Okay. Email. This actually.
So we can get some more people here watching this live stream. Doug needs some friends.
So I'm doing the first show and you're doing the second one.
So yeah, feedback is episode 39 is first. That's our
right.
I'm calling it our third feedback episode. So that's mine. And then you're doing, that first story. Campaign Against the Planet, which, no, wait, that's 41. The Slot Machine Racket.
There you go. That's it.
I'll tell you what, though, when I saw the title, because I don't often do this, but today I got the show notes all put together before I even read any of the stories.
Oh, okay.
So when I saw the title, Campaign Against the Planet, I was super excited because I thought we were gonna. I may bring it up again when we actually do the episode, but I thought we were gonna get some aliens,
something big. Yeah,
not the planet I thought it was.
Yeah, wrong planet. About. Wrong planet.
Yep. All right. Are you ready to do this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're listening to the Superman Super Show, episode number 39, our third feedback episode. Hello and welcome to the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Steeven, and 1,000 miles over there to my right is another host, Mr. Ed Moore.
Howdy, folks.
How's things your way?
A little cold, but not very precipitaty, if that's a word. If not, it should be.
Yeah, we are under a winter storm advisory here in
Ooh.
northeastern Kansas. They're saying possible 1 to 4 inches overnight. We'll see, but yeah,
As long as it
we're
happens
prepared.
overnight, it shouldn't mess with you too much, should it?
No, no. Even 4 inches wouldn't be all that bad. Um, I don't. The only time I have to get out really tomorrow is to take my daughter to school and to pick her up from school, and it's
Okay.
practically a straight shot from here. And I got me a Honda Pilot, so I drive
Okay.
around like those weirdos in the commercials. I'm just out peeling out and bouncing
Yeah.
around through snow because
You're not going down hills backwards and all that kind of stuff.
I do all that. I ignore the little warning at the bottom of the screen on the commercials that say professional driver in an
Hmm.
enclosed course. Yeah, I don't. I just ignore that.
Well, I figure I've been driving um, shit 30 plus, 35 plus. I'm about as damn professional as it's going to get. So I mean, I'm good.
That's right.
It's
I feel the same way. I feel the same way.
it's kind of like the alphabet. Just because you've been doing it longer doesn't mean you're doing it better.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's very strange around here because, I mean, granted, we have a big college population in Lawrence, which is like 15 minutes from here. But every winter, when it gets snowy and icy, it's like just everybody loses their damn minds. It's like they've forgotten how to drive in the snow. And I kind of chalk that up to these are students that don't normally live here, and maybe they're from a warmer clime. Why they would come to Kansas, I don't know, but
Yep.
yeah.
So living 15 minutes away, do you not have students that live there in your town?
No, I don't have hardly anybody that lives in this town. This
What?
town is
Okay.
freaking small.
Wow.
We
All the
don't
more reason to live there.
that yeah, exactly. We well, the town I grew up in had always had a sign up for at least 2 decades. The first 2 decades of my life, they had a big sign up outside of town that said Eudora, Kansas, population 3,600 and growing. And it's probably 4 times that size now. But this
Wow.
town is way smaller, the town I'm living in right now. And it's yeah, it's we don't have a police presence, we don't have a gas station, we have a small little diner right down the road, and like there's like a tiny winery, but that's about it. If we need groceries or anything like that, we have to go to the next town over.
Okay. So my question, which I always wonder as I'm driving through small towns in West Virginia, why is the town there? Why did people clump right there?
Well, it's actually the original. This is the I'm in a town called Lecompton, Kansas.
Hmm.
It's the territorial capital of Kansas.
Okay.
When folks migrated west and they stopped in Kansas, they kind of we're kind of on a hill. You can kind of see the surrounding area, and they they set up a settlement here,
Right.
named it after the guide that brought people west. And yeah, there's a big sign outside of town that says territorial capital of Kansas and where slavery died, because the whole bleeding Kansas, if you've ever heard that story,
Hmm.
this around Civil War, this is kind of where it started.
Okay.
And actually, I found some old. There used to be like a newsletter that went around a couple of decades ago about this town, and we used to be called the Wall Street of the West because there were just a crap ton of banks in this town.
Okay.
And but since then, it's just gotten very, 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 very tiny, and that's kind of the way I like it. And I'm actually going to link this to Superman. You ready?
Okay. Let's go.
Do you remember in the 90s, there was it might have been late 90s, maybe even early 2000s, there was a mini series from DC called The Kents?
Yes.
There is a moment in that book because it's all about uh, Jonathan had found all these letters from his, his ancestors who came to Kansas, and Clark was reading them. And there's these, accounts in the letters of them migrating to Kansas, and they stopped here. They mention this town and
Okay.
how they built that, the Kents were part of the community that started here, which is pretty cool. But
Yeah.
the
Cool beans.
the guy who wrote it, Timothy Truman, is that
Hmm. Yeah.
he's a big, I don't know if he's from around here, but he's a big Western buff. So he does his research.
Okay. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Tim Truman was born and raised in West Virginia.
Very nice. Very
so,
nice.
so there we go.
We do have Andy Parks
Okay.
is maybe a half hour away.
Okay.
He the town he lives in, the town that I grew up in, used to play them every year in basketball and football and stuff.
Okay.
So that's every once in a while he'll tweet out about BS going on in Kansas. Run into him a number of times at conventions, little
Right.
local conventions and stuff. He's a very nice guy.
Well, cool beans.
All right, you ready to do some feedbacking?
Let's feedback. I am a
So
feedbacker.
we're gonna I feel like I should put a microphone next to an amp now so we can get some feedback.
Oh, no.
So we had originally, because I think our first feedback episode was like episode 9,
I
and then our
think so.
second feedback episode was episode 20. And we had thought around that time, we'll just do a feedback episode every 10 episodes or go. And then I think we both just kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
And we got a couple of emails out of the blue to our to the Superman Super Show at gmail.com. And I was like, well, holy crap, that's some feedback. And then I realized we haven't done a feedback episode in a while. So I went through Twitter and the forum and added those 2 emails, and we've got some stuff. We got a lot of feedback going back to September 1st. Episode 20 is our first bit of feedback. That's how far back we're going. And it's kind of a funny bit of feedback. This comes from the forum, and it's from Kyle. If you remember the first feedback episode, we shared some feedback from Kyle. And then he went on to the forum and thanked us for sharing his feedback. And then, so for the second feedback episode, we read that feedback of him thanking us for reading his feedback. So this comment from the forums is from that second feedback episode. And he says, thanks for reading my comments on your second feedback episode that were a thank you for reading my comments on your first feedback episode. It brought a smile to my face while out driving. I have started listening to the Becoming a Bat podcast and reading along with them. I have found that for some of the Batman/detective issues, I have legitimately enjoyed the comic as a story. But with the Superman/action issues so far, I have always seen them as a product of their time. I enjoy them, but also realize they're a bit silly. Superman isn't fully formed yet. I'm not sure if the Batman creators were older or more experienced, or if the Batman character is just easier to tell a story with. That's just something I've been thinking about as I've started reading the early adventures of both characters. Has Ed noticed this as he is also reading both characters?
Yes, Kyle, I have noticed, and I have to say that you're almost talking apples and oranges if you think about it.
Yeah.
Batman is a dude. Now, his motivations and his allies and his villains and motivations of all those people, that has to be fleshed out, right? Because basically, if you start from zero, you have to add all those things. Superman, his allies and his villains still have to be worked out, but keep in mind, Superman's not a dude. Superman now is an alien with superpowers, which he was supposed to be when he started, but they didn't quite know how to get there or what his superpowers were going to be.
Right.
Batman now is a dude. There is no,
Yeah.
now they have fleshed out over time training and, like I say, motivations and how, potentially messed up in the head he is. And that's the question of, you know, who is the real person, Bruce Wayne or Batman, right?
Yeah.
You can ask the same thing, I guess, about Superman, but really, Superman is always Superman. He wears Clark Kent.
Yep.
And in that Superman is the character, he's an alien with all of these freaky powers and he can do things and so it's going to take a little bit of time, and this is just based on Superman now, comparing. Of
Yeah.
course, at that time, I don't I don't necessarily know that anybody was thinking about S- Superman now is where we want to get to or anything like that. They were just throwing crap against the wall, and whatever stuck
Yep.
is what came out that month. So, all of his powers and flying and super hearing and all of that stuff. It just developed. As a matter of fact, a couple stories that we may get to later on tonight, we start to see a little bit more of that development, I think, along that path of where he was at the beginning and what we assume or see to be Superman now.
Yep. I think the fun thing about Batman, if I was a writer at the time working on that book, is that with Batman versus Superman, like they said, they hadn't quite understood what his powers were going to be with Superman. And so throughout the years, they were adding stuff to his powers. Oh, by the way, he can do freezing breath, and oh, now he can do this. And but with Batman, since he is just a regular guy, you can add gadgets.
Right.
Oh, he's now developed this, and that sounds like a lot of fun to be able to, because that's you have a valid excuse there. There's nothing that you have to try to justify with
Right.
something like that.
Yeah. We need Batman needs a plane because he's got to get somewhere real far fast. Well,
Yep.
okay, make him a plane. It's a poo.
Yep.
He needs a boat because he's okay. Make a boat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whereas Superman, it's like, well, he's super, so I guess we'll have him jump there.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So that Becoming a Bat, that's a really good show. I've been enjoying that a lot, and I would recommend that as well as ours,
Yeah.
for anybody that's curious about golden age stories. There aren't too many golden age, Marvel or DC, although it's questionable when you talk about Marvel's golden age what really that is. But
Yeah.
um, there's not really too many podcasts out there that are covering stuff from that
No.
time frame. So I mean, Becoming a Bat and the Superman Super Show. Um, I look for podcasts all the time, and there's not really a whole lot golden age that.
Yeah. There were a couple, but I don't know if they've updated anything in a while. But
Um,
I have the Becoming a Bat. I have that lodged firmly in the back of my mind because I do have the first two or three
mhm,
Golden Age Batman trades
right,
collections, like what we're using for Superman, but I haven't started them yet. And the moment I start one, I'm going to start listening to that podcast. So, because it's very rare that I actually read along with a podcast. I
right.
usually come into a podcast after I've read all the stories, or I'm just listening to the show because I like the hosts, and
Well, so
you
many
know,
of the shows nowadays come into a book and they start covering it, in issue 187.
yeah,
So, so
yeah,
you, so unless you've been reading the book, it's not as appealing. Whereas, they started with Detective Comics,
yeah.
and then they incorporated the Batman title itself. So, I mean, it's the perfect place to start doing both for a read along, because if you're interested in Batman, they started at the very beginning. There you go.
And I'm curious. Maybe you can tell me. I don't want to spend too much. I want to get to some more feedback. But
Right.
do they, with those Batman Golden Age comics, do they face the same kind of, I don't want to say issues, but like with us reading these Golden Age Superman issues, there's a lot of stuff like his firsts. The first time he does this, the first time he does that, doesn't happen in either of these two books, Superman or Action. They either tend to happen on the radio show or in the newspaper strip. And
I haven't
I
heard
didn't
him
know if the
bringing up.
Batman,
I haven't heard him bringing up that too much, but then that may be because I don't know that they had a radio serial or a newspaper strip for Batman.
good point. Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's if it is something that's going on, it's definitely not something that they have been pointing out as they have encountered it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
ooh,
All right.
hang on,
Our
hang on.
second bit of feedback comes from September 12th. It also comes from the forum. It's in response to episode number 21. And I should have listed what each of these episodes were about, but I didn't. So I don't remember. Well, maybe we'll pick that up when we read the comment. But this is off the forum. It says, hello, gents. I have enjoyed your show tremendously and wanted to drop a line or two to express my appreciation. I listen to quite a few podcasts, mostly comics, news, and history, and I have found your approach to be right up my alley. Short, digestible episodes, starting at the very beginning of Superman's publication. I often use podcasts to guide my back issue reading. I actually have the first 5 Superman in the Golden Age soft covers, so this gives me the opportunity to read right along with you.
Cool.
I get a kick out of your banter and your way of describing your locations, 1,000 miles to the left and right, etc. I live smack dab between you in Southern Illinois. My hometown is Chester, Illinois, a small burg of about 5,000, but known for its maximum security prisons. Menard Correctional Center, where I spent my career as an employee, not an inmate, haha, he says, and as the home of Popeye. That's cool. Most of the characters are based on real people, including Popeye himself. Frank Rocky Fiegel, he says in parentheses, Olive Oil, based on somebody named Dora Pascal, and Wimpy, William Schuchert. My grandmother even remembered Dora Pascal, who was a store clerk when my grandma was young. Anyway, about the latest episode, cool. The comeback of Larry Trent. Okay, that tells us what we're dealing with.
Right.
From Superman number 2, this is the first Superman story I would categorize as a classic. While I have enjoyed most of the stories so far, despite Superman's quite rogue, quote, taking matter into his own hands, end quote, actions in some stories, I absolutely love this story. I was going to mention a couple of important trivia points about the second story of Superman number 2, but since I don't know whether you plan to cover all Superman stories in each issue or just the primary ones, I don't want to spoil it here. Congratulations on an excellent and fun show, and keep up the good work, Mike A.
Cool. All right, Mike A. Let me shrink the world a little bit. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, spent the first rotations around the sun, the first 7 rotations around the sun, living in Chicago, Illinois with my mom and dad. I was born at the Cook County Hospital, and my mom worked in the plaza where the Blues Brothers went in to pay the taxes on the school or the nunnery, the school, I guess it
orphanage.
Was.
Yeah.
Orphanage, yeah. So there we go. Southern Illinois, that's quite a distance, but we're shrinking the world, just like, I don't know if we were recording yet, but Steeven was talking about an author or a comic book miniseries that spoke about the town that he's living in, and my connection was that the writer of that story was born and raised in the state that I'm in. So it's just stuff like that. We think, the world is a really big place, and it has gotten smaller with internet and online presence and all that stuff. But I still think it gets even smaller when person A knows where person B lived and person B, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So there we go. Some small world stuff. I knew that about Popeye, that he was based. A lot of the characters were based on real people. I didn't recall. I certainly don't know that I ever knew names of people. And Chester, Illinois sounds familiar, but I don't know that I would have made the connection. So cool stuff. I like Popeye.
One of the 2 times that I've been to Chicago, both times to attend the Chicago convention before Wizard World bought it. The guy I had gone with, we went downtown, and at one point we found ourselves at that whatever it was from the Blues Brothers. I know that they were
something Daily Tower. I
they were going to the Cook County's assessor's office within there, but we couldn't get in because it was actually the whole, like the freaking whole block that thing is built on was surrounded by wooden fencing because they were doing some kind of construction. And we did that thing like you see in a Bugs Bunny cartoon where we looked through a knot in the wooden fence, and I was like, holy crap, that's where they drove the freaking car over the line up to the place. And I thought that was pretty neat.
Cool beans.
All right.
Why I wonder, is Larry Trent a classic, do you think?
I don't know.
Larry Trent would be categorized as a classic.
Well, Mike, if you're listening to this episode, episode number 39, make sure you come to the forum and tell us why
feed
Larry
us back some more.
Yeah. What it is about the comeback of Larry Trent. Because I don't know, I haven't, none of these stories to me are like when I hear people talk about Superman, they're like, oh man, here, let me fill you in on some classic Golden Age stories. I never hear any of that kind of stuff. So
now we've so far we've run across a handful of characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, why a particular story would be, I mean, other than, the introduction of the Ultra Humanite and Luther and Lois, why a story like Larry Trent would be considered a classic, unless I'm missing something, which obviously I am. But yeah, feed us back and let us know why it or you or both consider that story a classic.
All right. The next bit of feedback is from September 15th. It also comes from the forum. It is in regard to episode number 22. And it's from Mike A, who we just read his last bit of feedback. And he says, hi, Steve and Ned. As a follow-up to my comments on the last episode, the comeback of Larry Trent, with a couple of pieces of trivia in story 2 of Superman number 2 that I alluded to. A lot of twos. In the Telegraph, Clark sends on page 292 of volume 1 of Superman in the Golden Age, for the first time, the editor of the Daily Star is identified as George Taylor. He had remained unnamed since his first appearance in Action Comics 1, and before long, he will be replaced by the much more familiar Perry White. Also, in the same panel, Metropolis is identified in the telegram as being located in New York. I never noticed that. Metropolis's exact geography has been the subject of some debate over the years, being placed in both New Jersey and Delaware. Its skyline is said to have been modeled after Toronto, where Joe Shuster grew up. Anyway, just a bit of fun trivia. I enjoyed the story as well as your review of it. Thanks again, Mike A.
Okay. Yeah, I remember us talking about skyline. And I think we noted the editor deal. As far as New York, I guess I always assumed that Metropolis was New York.
Yeah.
I mean, people out there that read more DC comics than I do, is New York ever identified separately in DC books? I mean, is it its own place?
Yes, it is.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, then...
the Teen Titans, or at least when I was reading Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is the subject of Event or Else, if you all want to go listen to that, there is a moment in there where all the heroes near the end of the series meet at Titan's Tower, and I'm fairly certain they said that that's in New York City.
Okay. All right. Well, then Metropolis is not New York. Just like I thought that even though it's a different city, that Gotham was New York as well, just
Yeah.
spoken of in a different aspect. And it
Yep.
never bothered me because, it's a comic book. It's all pretend. Metropolis and Gotham could be pretending to be the same city. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
care. I mean, it doesn't matter to me.
Metropolis to me, it's weird because both Metropolis and Gotham have always felt like New York City to me.
Hmm.
And it's like Metropolis is the clean part of New York, and then Gotham's the dirty part.
Right. Yeah.
But as I think about it recently, it's like I Gotham to me almost now feels like Chicago, maybe.
Okay. But wasn't there a time historically when New York was referred to as Gotham?
I think so. Yeah, I
Hmm.
think so.
Yeah, see, that's that. I'm a Marvel zombie,
Yeah.
and Marvel uses New York. They use
Yep.
San Francisco. They use Dallas. So
Yeah.
that's always been one of the
Well,
primary
and it's
differences that fans will say is that Marvel is based in the real world,
yeah,
and
the world outside your window.
yeah. So
And
they opted to use the real names instead of Star City and Coast City and stuff like
well,
that.
what's funny about that is in DC when they do talk about real places like New York City, like Teen Titans is located in New York City, it throws me out of the story because I'm so used to every location in a DC comic being a fake location. And
Right.
so
You're
it's,
like,
yeah,
wait, I know where that is.
right. That's not DC. Did they
Yeah,
go
that's not right.
into the Marvel universe? What's going on?
Yep,
All right. Are we ready for the next one?
I think so. Let's go.
Okay. This one comes from Twitter. It's from 927, and it's from Radio Superman, who does the Radio Superman podcast. This is regarding episode number 24. He says Lex has his first appearance in the comic books. I won't say what issue in case you want to be surprised, but you're getting close. Stay Superman. And then he says, I should have said Luther. I'm not sure what issue they add Lex to his name.
Yeah.
So we must have been wondering in episode 24 when the frick Luther was going to show up.
Probably because we were in the midst of I think 24. We were in the midst of the Ultra Humanite,
Yep.
and we knew that he would leave because he shows up elsewhere, and it's like, yeah, but somewhere soon that Lex Luthor dude's going to have to pop up, to be Superman's real first arch villain.
Yep.
Because and again, I think because we were talking, we knew that the Ultra Humanite was not,
Right. Yeah. All right. We got another bit of feedback for episode 24. This comes from the forum, and it comes from Kyle from October 2nd. He says, another fine episode, gentlemen. I found myself really struggling to enjoy these early issues as this isn't the Superman we are eventually going to get.
Okay.
Superman letting people die when he could probably save them or not helping right away just doesn't sit right with me. For
tough.
example, letting the civilians try to put out the fire when he could and eventually did do it easily himself just seems weird. I picture firefighters showing up at a blaze and hanging back saying, let's wait and see how these people handle it first. I do think the writing and the artwork are improving and the issues look more dynamic. I am still greatly enjoying the podcast and I hope it goes for a long time. It is great having the DC Infinite app finally and being able to follow along. Kyle.
Cool. Yes. Are these issues on the app?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the general rule between both Marvel and DC is if you can purchase the comics digitally through Comixology or for the Kindle or whatever, they're available on the app.
These particular issues, I mean, though, like all the way back in the golden age. Okay.
Yeah, because they digitized all the stories for the collections.
Okay.
The collections I'm reading are the digital collections. So then they just
Right.
separate them into issues
Okay.
on the app. And funnily enough, I just read, I think it was Tom Brevoort, uh, Marvel guy, who somebody was asking him about when certain books were going to show up on the Marvel app.
Hmm.
And according to him, at least with the Marvel stuff, most of the first few big batches of digital comics were simply because they were converting stuff into trades,
Okay.
and they would digitally scan them at that point, and so they had all that stuff already. So anything that hasn't been put in a trade over the last 20 or 30 years hasn't been digitized, and so they have to go in
So
and
they
do
don't
that. And
have it.
that's why,
Okay.
yeah, that's why a lot of that stuff isn't on there, but they slowly appear on the apps. Every week we get just a few more old back issues of something over on, like, on the Marvel app.
And is it one or the other that also takes stuff off?
Oh, I don't
Does either one take
think,
stuff off?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I hope not.
Not that I'm
That
aware of.
sounds dumb
Co-
to me.
Comixology Unlimited, while they don't take stuff off, if you're a member of the Unlimited, there are books that you can borrow for free, paying the $5 a month or whatever.
Mhm.
And those, there are books that come in and out of that.
Oh,
So a
okay.
book that is
Okay.
available one month may not be available the next month.
Okay.
However, if you borrow it and you keep it borrowed, if it becomes unavailable, you still have it until you return it digitally. So
Oh, okay. Well, that's kinda
if
cool.
I if if I see stuff that I know I want to read, but I may not read it right away, I just go ahead and borrow it because I know that it's going to be there for me until I return it.
And,
All right, go ahead.
just to address what Kyle said here at the beginning, golden age is just really, really difficult, I think, a lot of times for us contemporary people to read because we're used to what we get down at our shop. Well, tomorrow actually, as we're recording, and it bears no resemblance to the way things were written in 1942. You know,
Right.
now visually, of course, it does bear a striking resemblance, and so that makes it, in my mind, even more difficult because it's like, well, this is that well, but it's not when you read it. Um, and heck, in the mid 40s, what is that, Stephen? That's 80 years. That's 6 generations ago. Let's say five to 6 generations ago. Would that be
Yeah.
fair? So
Yeah.
truly the world was completely different, and so the people inhabiting that world would be completely different as well. So it is a little difficult to equate all of that. And so um, I enjoy reading older stuff, and actually I have a prepared banter if I need
Oh,
it about that very kind of topic.
okay.
Um, Older things allow me to try to get into the headspace of the people who created whatever it is I'm consuming.
Yeah.
Music, um, you know, for instance, take 70s. My wife is a very big 70s fan musically. I'm a big 80s fan.
Yeah.
10 years, give or take, totally different styles, feels, sounds
Yep.
of music, totally different.
Yep.
Once again, you move to the 90s. From the 70s and 80s, completely different sound. Now, after the 90s, I think decade after decade, right? Score? No, decade. Yeah, decade after decade. I think music starts to sound a little bit more familiar as you move through time to
Yeah.
when we are now. The last 20, maybe to 30 years, I think the music is very similar. But 60s, from like the 40s to the 60s, the 50s are kind of a little fuzzy, but 40s, 60, 70, 80, 90, each decade just has a completely different feel to the music. After that, it feels, so you have over the course of say our parents' lifetime, 5 or 6 different styles of music, and distinctly, you can pull out a
Yeah.
song from each one, and if you listen to them, you're like, yeah, that one had nothing, didn't sound at all like this one or this one or that. So,
Yeah.
um, different everything, different headspaces, obviously different technologies to make music. Music is a little different from writing. I mean, if you can put letters, however
Yeah.
you put letters, it doesn't matter really. But just different people, different headspace, came from different places. So you get that also in comic books. Even now, the books that I am reading from the '80s have a completely different feel than the books
Yep.
that you get now.
Yeah.
And that's just that's one person easily could have grown up reading books in the '80s and reading books now. So you definitely can compare. Um, it's a little bit more difficult for me to remember '70s like music and stuff like that because I was born in '68, so I didn't pay much attention to music until like the mid '70s, the late '70s. That was so. My point, Kyle, is that I enjoy consuming older media because it gives me the chance to try to feel what it was like, uh,
Yeah.
to not assume what I do and know is the same as who I'm reading, who I'm listening to, who I'm watching on TV and in movies, but instead let me, quote unquote, which is kind of the point, pretend that I am that person or I live in their world. And so that's why I enjoy reading comics because for me it's an escape. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Today at work sucked. So what do I want to do? Well, let me read a couple comic books about whatever. I don't know, being a soldier in World War II, being a spaceman in the 2020s, uh, some kind of horror book where the creature won't die. Whatever. It
Yeah.
allows me to pretend something other than what I am trying to escape now, whatever that may be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of interesting because when it comes to any comics that came out, even before I started, even just comics that came out before I started reading comics, when I was in my 20s, 30s, it's like, oh, that comic's from the 70s. Just not going to read that. And
Yeah.
especially not going to read any of this Silver Age or Golden Age crap. But as I've gotten older, back half of my 40s, and now I've just eased into my 50s, I find that I can appreciate that stuff a bit more and don't seem to have that hang up
Mhm.
about reading this stuff. It's kind of weird. And I don't know if that means that my tastes have matured or I've become more open the older I've gotten. But yeah, and you talked about how golden age can be, depending on what you're reading, can be really hard to get into. And just a week or so ago, I discovered through, well, I'll say Comixology, but it's Amazon, it's Kindle. But there are issues of golden age books that the one that I got, for example, is from 2015. That's when it was scanned. It's done by a company called Golden Age Rare Vintage Comics Collection, and they've got all kinds of stuff. And the one that I went ahead and bought it because I just wanted to see what they looked like. Blue Beetle #1, the
Oh,
very first Blue Beetle, and it's really kind of funny because the cover has somebody had drawn something on the cover,
okay.
in ink pen or something. So it looked, they didn't like try to clean anything up. They didn't try to erase any of that or take, it looks like if you just pick this, you found this book in a freaking uh, bin at a garage sale.
Right.
But I've been trying really hard to read this book, and it's tough to get into. There's more than one story, and the first one in the book is basically mostly about Dan Garrett growing up. It's so boring that
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
understand why they would devote so much panel space to him as a kid and going through college. It's just so weird.
Yep. Um, is that from Gondwana Land or something like that? The name of the company that made it?
The original publisher?
No, what you
Oh,
bought.
I don't know. It just says publisher is Superheroes Golden
Okay.
Age Vintage Comic Scans Archive.
Okay, because there's a dude that will assemble golden age stories of different characters and put them together and sells them strictly on Amazon. That's his
Yeah,
uh, his storefront, and it's like Gawana Land or Gondawanda Land or something like that is the
yeah,
name of his company. And okay,
yeah.
Blue Beetle.
I don't think this is them, but
Cool.
just some of the other stuff that they have. There's the Black Terror, the Arrow, the old Golden Age Daredevil, Plastic Man, more Blue Beetle, something called Atomic Mouse. So yeah, there's a
Hmm.
lot of stuff on there. And the funny thing is that you can get this stuff other places. You don't
Hmm.
have to spend the $1.99. But I thought, all right, $1.99 is worth it for me just to look and see what it look. If
Sure.
they did anything to it to try to clean it up, because the on the website it actually, or on Amazon, the description, um, I believe there's a part in the description where they talk about HD 64 full color pages and high definition and zooming panels, which all comics, digital comics have a zooming panel. But I just wanted to see if they had, if this was like a digital restoration, and
Right.
they're not, but it like I said, it's kind of tough to read. I want to finish it because I don't know a lot about the Golden Age Blue Beetle, but
Right. Okay, we're coming in at about almost 52 minutes. Do you want to?
well, yeah, we could. That last feedback was from episode 24. We don't have any more feedback from episode 24, and we still have one, two, three. Let's see,
You still have several.
still got 11 more to go.
Well,
So
I mean, we can just do those 11 in a second feedback episode. And like I said, you can release these back to back, or you can pocket this one, and then we can record a couple.
let's
Whatever you want to do.
let's go ahead and I'll do like a second introduction without giving
Without
an
a
episode
close.
number,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that way, because I don't know that I want to put them back to back, because I think while it, some people like feedback episodes, other people might be put off at two of them in a
Sure.
row.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
let me
We'll
do a
try to
little
do the rest of
introduction.
these in one episode, and then that way we have time to do a couple books, or at least one book.
Yeah. So I'll just say here at this point. All right, that looks like about all the time we have for this episode. We don't want to stretch it out too long. We still have a bit more
Oh.
feedback to get through. So we're going to come back and just a little further down the line, a few episodes from now, and we'll get to some more feedback. But please keep sending your feedback. We'll try to do these a bit more often. There will be a bit at the end that will tell you all the places where you can send the feedback, be it the email address or the forums or whatnot. So until then, folks, this has been the Superman Super Show. My name is Steven, and that's Ed. Bye.
Ciao.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and save this file. Superman Super Show. And this is 39. Our newest cat jumped up into my lap at one point during that episode, but
I didn't notice.
she she's it was not in camera range, and she kind of was like, "What are you doing? This is boring," and then left.
I want to see. No, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what my two are doing, I guess. Terry's keeping them occupied.
All right, my second file is recording.
As is mine. And I will read this intro with a couple changes and we'll call it our fourth feedback episode.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Right on.
You're listening to the Superman Super Show, our fourth feedback episode. Hello, and welcome to the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Ed, and 1,000 miles, which we now understand somebody likes the reference. Over there to my right is another host, Mr. Steeven Orr.
Hello.
Howdy, Steeven. Now, I move to the chair that we currently suspend banter so that we can continue with feedbacking to give the folks the feedback that they have feedbacked to us about.
That's right. If you listen to episode 39, you know that we had way too much feedback to fit into one episode. So yeah, let's just get to it.
All right. So it looks like for episode 29 from the forum, we had some feedback from Kyle on November 28th. Oh boy, we are a little bit behind, aren't we? Oh,
there's one right before that one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Radio Superman on Twitter tweeted us on October 5th about episode 25. And he said, I do remember at John Reed's Comics, excellent podcaster. Go out there and check out his stuff. He has much stuff. And he has he's in a very, very positive frame of mind recently. He's had some life changes that seem to have emoted him favorably too. Congratulations, John. Way to go, man. Yep. He has some good theories about Superman being able to control where he goes while descending in the air. He talked about on his Golden Age Superman podcast. I like to think he can fly and just doesn't know it yet. Gas, the Golden Age Superman, also covered the other features in Action Comics. I do remember listening to that show when it was current, when John was making them. I believe he has shuttered that show and has moved on to some of his other interests. Still has a lot of Superman interest currently as well. But yeah, I do remember the show. I don't remember him speaking specifically about that issue that we have pointed out about Superman. And it's funny that this should come up in the feedback because one or both of the stories that we read that we will get to here in a little bit, hopefully, I noticed some issues of a flying Superman doing some things that I'm like, which is funny to think the laws of physics don't allow that. I know it's a comic book, but still there are laws you have to follow if you're going to say that certain things happen, because if certain things then certain other things have to happen, and so you can't just in a line of things say, well, I want this one and I want that one. Science doesn't work that way. Science is very linear in what happens. So
it's very funny, us comic book fans, how much we will put up with and suspend our disbelief on. But some of the basic things, it's just like, look, I'll buy that Superman can jump as high as he can jump, but he cannot push against a submarine in the middle of a body of water and not have anything at his back and have that kind of leverage. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, no.
So.
You've got me with one, and the other is a no.
Yep.
So, all right, let's see here.
I do want to say real quick about John Reed's Comics. Not knowing when this episode is going to go out right now, as we're recording it, it's January the 24th, 2023. He just released, it's not his newest episode, it's the one before that, of his Superman in Crisis, which is going to be coming to a close pretty soon. But in that, he's at the point right now where it's after Crisis, and one of the books he talked about was Secret Origins issue number 1.
Yes,
that goes into the the origin of Earth 2 Golden Age Superman. And it's funny because I was listening to the show while I was making breakfast. And I must have kind of zoned out at one point because he starts describing the story in this book. And it's like, wait a minute, that's from Action Comics #1. What is he talking about? Did he just decide to start reviewing Golden Age books? And then, so I kind of rewound, and then I looked up the book on the DC Universe Infinite app and read it. And it's really fun because it takes basically what we have learned about Superman's origin in Superman 1 and combines it with some of the stories in Action Comics. Like, Action Comics #1 opens up with him and with the woman over his shoulder, and he sticks her behind a tree and goes in to get the governor to stop. All that is in there, but it's all been redrawn and it's being retold in a different way and a more linear fashion. So it was really neat to go in there and read that, because it's Wayne Boring and Jerry Ordway on the art. It's really interesting stuff. I think it's like from '86. So if you're interested in all in Golden Age Superman, if you've been reading these stories, go look for that issue because it was a lot of fun.
Okay, cool beans. All right, now we get to Kyle off the forum, right? Yes.
Yes.
From October 30th, talking about our live 12 recording. Says, hey guys, enjoying the show. Ultra Humanite shows back up and is a huge part of All-Star Squadron and Infinity Inc. after those Superman family appearances as well. Really good stuff. And that is no. Have I messed it up? Yes, yeah. I have. I'm sorry. Okay.
You started on the right row and then you jumped down to the...
Okay. All right. So Kyle from November 28th. Sorry, Kyle. From the forum talking about episode 29. Now this makes sense. I'm a bit behind and just listened to this show today. Another good job. I always thought Ultra Humanite as Dolores Winter was a creation of Roy Thomas and All-Star Squadron. So it was interesting to see it. Excuse me again, there we go. To see it actually happen back in 1940 in the Squadron. Superman also identified Ultra by his eyes. I should have known Thomas would use old comic history where possible. Yeah, that's a Roy and Dan Thomas kind of thing. Is they pull out their shovel whenever they want to write about something, boy, and they dig deep and pull out some stuff. Have you read any of All-Star Squadron or Infinity Inc.?
I have not. I want to. I'm really interested, especially after wrapping up Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then hearing John reads comics, his episodes with Superman, and he talks about All-Star Squadron a lot. And I would like to go back and read some of that stuff. There's just so many things that are on my digital stack to read that I don't know if I will ever get to them.
Yeah, All-Star Squadron has a special place for me in my collection because that was the title that I first mail ordered back issues for when I was in junior high.
Oh boy.
I put money in an envelope, loose change money. Hey, kitty. That's how naive I was at the time. I totaled the order and everything with shipping and handling correctly, and I just put it all in an envelope and mailed it to them. And they must have got it because I got the books.
Nice.
So, yeah. Nowadays, there's no way that you would get away with putting any kind of real money in an envelope and putting it in the mail. That's not going to. Not that I'm disparaging against anybody with the postal service, but
I worked for the postal service for a year and a half. My dad retired from the postal service. I've seen some stuff. I'll just say that.
Okay, you were there.
I was there, man.
All right. Now on November 30th, on Twitter, in response to the Live 12 recording from Dr. Strange, who is Billy D_Licious on Twitter. Hey guys, enjoying the show. Ultra Humanite shows back up and is a huge part of All-Star Squadron and Infinity Inc. after those Superman family appearances as well. Really good stuff. Billy knows what he's talking about because he has an All-Star Squadron podcast. And I believe they are moving to or have already, I don't believe they've moved to yet, but they're getting ready to move to Infinity Inc. because it's the quote unquote the children of the All-Star Squadron. They're also going to be talking about what was the other? There was another one that had Neptune Perkins and Young All Stars. They'll be talking about the book Young All Stars as well. So
what's the name of his podcast?
That's a really good question. I don't.
All right. Well, I'll look him up on Twitter. I'm sure I'll find it. He's been he retweets a lot of our stuff recently. Whenever we put up something about one of our episodes.
A World on Fire, an All-Star Squadron podcast.
And I'm just thinking that if I don't have time to read the books, I could listen to the podcast. That's where I get a lot of stuff from.
But yeah, he has had several co-hosts, and they have finished covering All-Star Squadron, which is 60 in the mid 60 issues, I think 63, something like that. And yeah, they're getting ready to move on to some other books here. When I believe the show's kind of on hiatus right now, as they're kind of just taking a break from it. And when they get back to it, it'll be Infinity Inc.
Yeah. My only comment I want to make on his feedback is that I recently learned that during there was a crossover storyline between Justice League and Justice Society back when Brad Meltzer was on Justice League and Jeff Johns was on Justice Society. And I don't remember what the main point of the story is, but apparently during that story, one of the B or C stories is Dolores, what's her name now? I can't remember her last name. Dolores Winters having the Ultra Humanite's brain taken from her and put into the white gorilla.
The white, yeah, you told me about that, I think, or somebody did, and you had read it or something. Yeah.
So I have that as a Comixology Unlimited. It was available at the time. I don't know if it still is, but it's sitting there in my queue waiting for me to read. I just have to find a chance to read it.
Just gotta quit watching TV and working and doing all that other stuff.
I haven't watched a lot of TV lately. I need to catch up with Willow. I haven't watched a lot of TV lately.
I haven't finished Willow yet either. I haven't finished the last Star Wars show about the dude either. I'm only about halfway through that one. I was kind of meh on it.
It's funny because it's one of those shows that I either hear people talking about how much I love it, it's the best thing Star Wars has ever put out, and this is how they need to do stuff from now on, and it's changed the game. And then I hear it didn't really do anything for me. It's either one of those two reactions.
Yep.
I haven't heard any. Yeah, I haven't heard any. This is the dumbest show ever. But it's either it's the greatest thing ever, or doesn't really do anything for me.
I'm in the latter. And I'm not really sure why. I'd really have to sit down and I guess it's just not giving me what I want from Star Wars. And so then I'd have to try to figure out what exactly that is, because it's got everything.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the reasons folks who really love it, like me, that's one of the things they really like about it, because it's like, here is a Star Wars story that is just about, the kind of like the dregs of Star Wars. There's no lightsabers, there's no mystic Jedi stuff, which is great. We all love that stuff. But sometimes you just kind of want it's almost like a street level story. It's like Daredevil versus Doctor Strange or Avengers,
Right. Yeah. All right. On December December 5th on Twitter, in relation to episode 31. Radio Superman tweeted, "The intro panel sounds like it may have been influenced by the Action Comics issue that dealt with treating the prisoners poorly. I wonder what the opening panel was in that."
Oh, I think I know what he's talking about.
Maybe we can retroactively switch them. Joking. We like original presentation when possible. It sounds like a newspaper strip that
Well,
got
the
rearranged.
whichever issue we were talking about on episode 31, I remember you pointing out, the opening panel of every story is that big panel, and it tells Superman, massive strength, and blah blah blah, and it had like something about Superman was stopping a guy beating a prisoner or something, and I remember you
Yes.
just specifically going, "What does this have to do with the story that we read?"
Yes.
And there was a story a number of issues back with the whole prisoner that escaped the work camp, and Superman goes undercover and to try to stop the warden who is abusing his prisoners. And so that could have been an unused panel from that story that they just stuck there.
Right. Yep. We've already paid for this. We need to use it.
Yep.
All right. Moving on, we have December 6th on the forum in relation to Gunnet. Sorry, guys. My spreadsheet is not wanting to work with me here. In relation to episode 30, and this is Steven, would you go ahead and take care of that? Because
Okay. This is from Kyle, and he says, "Another good episode, gentlemen. I too thought this was a fun issue. Just for some trivia, Terry Curtis is reused by Roy Thomas in All-Star Squadron when he tells his Ultra Humanite story. Curtis becomes the grandfather of Nuklon, or Atom Smasher. At least he was pre-Crisis. I'm not sure if that has changed." I really need to.
Well, that's cool. I recognize the name Nuklon.
I do
don't
too.
really know much about him or anything, but yeah. Okay, cool. So there you go. That's yet another situation where Roy Thomas wanted to make some kind of connection, and so he dug deep.
Okay, so
What did the
I
kids call that?
finally
A deep cut?
deep cut. I finally wised up, and I've pulled up our archive page over on the website,
Okay.
so I can tell you that episode 30, we were talking about Action Comics number 21, Superman and the Atomic Disintegrator.
Okay. Sounds like a Martian Manhunter story, or a not Martian Manhunter.
Marvin the Martian.
Marvin the Martian, yeah.
My XK21 regulator. I remember that being a really good story, though. That was a good Ultra Humanite story. You want me to do the next one?
Yeah, just finish up. My laptop is not working with the Google Sheets well.
All right. From December 12th over on Twitter in regard to episode number 32, we have Glenn, quote, "Seeking Superman Clark," or at the Glenn Clark. And he says, I believe actually this was a quote retweet. "A great podcast that takes us back to the golden age of Superman issue by issue. If you've never listened, give this one a shot. Great companion, the Superman in the Golden Age Omnibus. Also, so far, all the issues covered are available on the DC Infinite app." These are the kind of tweets I love anytime somebody is providing feedback or continuing the conversation on Twitter. And I also love tweets like this where they took our tweet for episode 32 and retweeted it and said, "Hey, people, you should come listen to the show," because that's how most podcasts these days gets listeners, is word of mouth. That's huge. So thank you, Glenn Clark.
The Glenn Clark. Thank you, sir. Yes,
indeed.
indeed.
All right. Moving on. Also, episode number 32 from Twitter on December 13th from Radio Superman. The second episode of the Superman radio serial from February 14th, 1941, had Clark ending the episode as a cub reporter for the Daily Planet. Superman Inc. came into being October 1939, and I would guess they wanted the Daily Planet name to be used in the comic books as well as radio. So let's see, episode 32, we were talking about Action Comics number 23, Europe at War, Part 2, and that must have been when they just suddenly stopped calling the paper the Daily Star and started calling it the Daily Planet.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird, because in, based on this Secret Origins book that I read, which we talked about in the previous feedback episode, during Crisis on Infinite Earths, we get a lot of Superman from Earth 2. Superman from Earth 2 is supposed to be the Golden Age Superman, but his history has him as the editor, eventually marrying Lois Lane, and the editor of the Daily Star. So when they get into the Silver Age and they create the whole multiverse thing, the Golden Age Superman no longer works for the Daily Planet. It's back to the Daily Star.
Right. Yeah. As an explanation of the differences. Oh, well, it was two different people.
Yeah.
And we're all like, no, it wasn't. It was the same
and
person.
I think that's why, and it may have even been around that episode when I had run across something on I think it was the DCfandom.com or Wikipedia that talks about once the Daily Planet is introduced in the Golden Age Superman stories, as far as the multiverse is concerned, Earth 2 splits off to like Earth 2B. And that's where the Daily Planet stories take place. So
that's where it happens. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. It's no wonder people were confused. It's no wonder Marv Wolfman felt we got to just destroy the multiverse.
Right. That's we can't fix it. We just have to get rid of it.
Right.
And that's why we are where we are today.
Yeah.
Which is back to a multiverse, and not just a multiverse, but a positive multiverse and a negative, dark multiverse. And there's another multiverse here.
Yeah. Multiple multiverses. That just, I was reading Dark Crisis and I got to that and I just went, all right, that I can barely wrap my mind around a multiverse. I can barely wrap my mind around an antimatter universe and a positive matter universe. And now you're just throwing too much at me. I'm an old man. I can't keep all this, can't keep track of all this stuff. DC Comics continuity, as much as I'm loving new DC books versus Marvel books, and I'm a Marvel zombie, DC continuity these days is even more confusing, despite, good Lord, how many reboots and restarts have they had just since Crisis? You know, crap ton of them. All right, so the next bit of feedback, we're now jumping into 2023. This is from January 9th, and it was an email that was sent to us by Billy D, also known as Dr. Strange from Twitter. We had some of his feedback earlier, and he says, just dropping by to say I've been enjoying the show. These Golden Age stories are a hoot. I was able to grab a DC Showcase Superman Volume 2, I think. And as soon as you guys get to that point, I'll definitely follow along. Cheers, Billy D, a.k.a. Dr. Strange. Now, this is the guy you said does the All-Star Squadron?
A World on Fire, yes.
Okay. Is he British?
No.
Okay. Usually when somebody says cheers, they're yeah.
And I looked up that showcase, and I believe it starts with like Superman 242 or something like that. So I was like,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I did that too. Because I included that in my response to him. It's like,
that'll be a little while.
I hope we're still around when we get to those.
Yikes.
Yeah. The cheers thing though, there's a really good quote from, have you ever watched the show Community?
No.
There's a quick little moment between three characters where they're kind of crossing in the hallway, and one of them says cheers to one, and the other guy goes Frasier. And then there's a British teacher, and as he's walking by, and he goes, "Faulty Towers, I win." Walks away. Yeah, I'm like,
Okay.
yes.
I know Faulty Towers.
Yeah. All right. We also have a bit of feedback, also from January 9th. This comes from the forum, and it's in response to episode number 36. That is when we talked about the fourth story in Superman number 4, Terror in the Truckers Union. And this is from Radio Superman. I agree with your sentiments that most of the people in Metropolis, especially the criminal element, should be aware of Superman by now. After all of his exploits to this point, I do wonder if the urban legend status that the radio serial was going for at the beginning influenced the comic books at all. Maybe Whitney Ellsworth, who I think was the editor, told Siegel and Schuster to dial back the public awareness of Superman. Just a thought I wanted to share, even though, as I've said on my podcast, I believe they are two different continuities.
Again, I've referenced it several times. A couple of the stories that we read in preparation for tonight, one of them struck me as, how do you not know who Superman is by this point?
Yep.
Especially if you're a bad guy. I mean, now I guess you could make an argument that a lay person who isn't constantly in the news may not be aware of Superman. But if you're somebody that is in the money racket scheme in Metropolis, you've got to know about Superman at this point. You have to.
Yeah, but it wouldn't surprise me to find out that what they were doing on the radio serial was being kind of that agenda or whatever was kind of being pushed down to the comics, because it's the exact same thing that happened with the death of Superman, which plug I'm covering on Just Another Fanboy Presents. They were supposed to do the wedding between Lois and Clark, but because of the TV show that was coming up, Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman, the people in charge, the Warner Brothers folks in charge of the show, didn't want Superman to get married in the comics before it happened on the show. And that's when they just said, well, we got to come up with something else. And they came up with probably the most well-remembered Superman story ever. So, yeah, wouldn't surprise me. All right, we got two more left. Radio Superman also tweeted, still on November 9th, still with episode 36. He says, I second your podcast recommendation for worst comic podcast ever. I was able to meet the hosts at Planet Comic-Con and got this Wonder Woman omnibus at their panel, and he shows a picture of it in the tweet, and it's the Wonder Woman by George Perez, Volume 2. Which obviously makes me wonder how local he is to me. Because if he's going to Planet Comic-Con, that's my backyard convention practically. So,
well, you should ask him.
The thing is that I never go because it's freaking expensive. Just for one day to go is freaking expensive. So, but yeah, maybe one of these days I'll go, and then I'll announce it and say, hey, anybody who wants to meet this guy right here, you have to make the first move because I'm socially awkward. Yep. All right. Last one. This is an email that we received on January 15th, and it was signed by Marvel X42. And they just say, been listening to your show. Great so far. There are so many good podcasts that have just ended and or cut a lot of corners by not doing what they set out to do. I hope you keep going for quite a while. I agree. I hope we keep going for quite a while too.
Thank you, Marvel X42 or Marvel by 42.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe. Marvel times 42.
Times 42. 42 is ringing. What isn't that
It's the
in the
answer to
Cap
the ultimate
universe?
question.
Isn't there an Agent 42 in Cap?
Oh yeah, probably.
Isn't
I
it
think that's
Sharon?
maybe even Sharon Carter from the World War II days.
Yeah,
But
Agent 42.
42 is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything
Oh, was it
from
42? Okay.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah,
I,
it's amazing how often that number shows up in pop culture these days, and it's
do you think
not
it's
always
because of
attributed
that,
to.
or
Sometimes it is, but it's not always. I think that there's also a reference to Stanley Kubrick, and I
hmm,
don't know. I don't watch a lot of Stanley Kubrick stuff, so.
there's also a reference to a Bureau 42 that's coming to mind for some reason. Was
And I
that
think
a
it was
is that a name of a
the number.
podcast? I
I
don't know.
don't know. I think it was the number of the. I don't remember that baseball player's name. The first black professional baseball player.
Oh, did he have number 42?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that the movie that they made about him over the last couple of years was just called 42.
Okay.
It bugs me that I can't remember his name. Of course, I'm not a sports guy, so. But that's all the feedback we have so far. Granted, I don't know how many episodes we've put out between this one and our third feedback episode, so we may have another batch of feedback ready for us by the time this episode goes out. We'll just see when we put this episode out.
How
But
it goes.
I just want to say that I appreciate everybody participating in any way they can. Jackie Robinson, thank you, Doug. Doug just mentioned in the comments because
Yes.
he's here live
Yes.
with us.
Thank you, Doug.
Jackie Robinson, that's right. Doug with the
Okay.
win. This is why we need folks
Yes.
watching us live.
To fill us in.
Because Ed and I are old and our memories don't work that well. It's only because we have so much information in our heads.
Well, obviously, it's all comic book stuff. So,
Yeah,
whether or
exactly.
not that's pertinent to
Yeah,
that's what the information is.
I equate it to a hard drive that has so much information in it, it makes it move slower, and
Hmm.
that's how my brain works.
It slows down. Yep.
But for everybody who provides feedback, who participates in that way, or for folks like Doug who come to hang with us when we do these live episodes where we record episodes, to folks who just send us email, and then to folks who retweet when we tweet out a new episode, folks like Radio Superman and the Glenn Clark and Doc Strange over on Twitter. Those are some folks that retweet us a lot. So much appreciation. I can tell you that of the multitude of podcasts I do, this one is the most successful. And I attribute that to Ed.
No.
Well, it's the only thing that's different.
No. Now the topic is different as well.
That's true. That's true.
You hit some folks' golden sweet spot,
Yeah.
and you put Superman on top of that, and it's like, I've never read that. I wonder what that and there you go.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So
And it's also because of Ed.
don't sell yourself short, man.
Oh, come
No.
on. I know I'm a super entertaining guy.
Yeah, but look, if it were me, then the other 8 million shows that I do would get the kind of attention this one does, and they don't. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
so it's
So
not me.
obviously you and I by ourselves don't really do a lot. But when
Nope.
you put us together, that's the magic, putting us
That's it.
together.
That's it.
Things explode.
It's this black space right here between the two pictures on screen.
That's right.
That's where the magic is, and it's
Yep, that 1,000 miles that is
Yep.
represented by that
That's it, man.
that black space. Yep. All right. Well, I look forward to our next feedback. If you stick around when the theme song at the end plays, you'll get information on where you can reach out to us. It's also in the show notes. Drop us an email, be on the forums, over on Twitter, all that junk, all kinds of places. Speaking of which, I had started a phone number like through Google. They have the Google Voice.
Mm-hmm.
So folks could text and leave voicemails for Just Another Fanboy, and it's used so rarely that I believe they may have shut it down by now. I got an email the other day that said, if we don't see activity on this number over the next 30 days or something, we're shutting it down and giving the number to somebody else, basically.
Wow. Okay. So
yeah,
they do that automatically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I need to check on that because I meant to start texting the number from my cell just so there'd be activity.
Keep it live.
But yeah, just to keep it there. But anyway, folks, thank you for joining us. This was the Superman Super Show. My name is Steven, and that's Ed.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, I should probably stop this recording. I was just kind of sitting there in a daze for a second. Okay, so I'm just going to call this file feedback 4.
Yep, that's what I called mine. All right, so I'm looking at 9:30 my time. So do you want to do
I think we can let's do the first story from Superman 5.
Okay, I'll take lead on it since I kind of dumped you on lead on that one.
Yeah, you're lead on this one anyway. So.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. Booyah.
Yeah, this is the Slot Machine Racket, which somebody obviously is not a fan of the gambling.
Yeah. Those nefarious money, whatever that is considered. I don't know.
Let me get it ready on my tablet here. All right, ready to go.
Alrighty. No, sorry, never mind.
Red leather, yellow leather.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Yep. Which, what is it? If you type that out, that's supposed to use every letter but Q, right?
Something like that. That's why you see it on font sites.
Yeah. Oh, Terry says that we're supposed to. Did you hear her?
I did hear. All I heard was "How now, brown cow."
So for voice acting, that's what we're supposed to do, as a vocal exercise. How now, brown? And
I know that for extras, if you're an extra in a scene like in a restaurant and you're supposed to be having a conversation with somebody, you can't actually talk out loud because it'll be picked up on the microphone. Apparently, they just go peas and carrots, peas and carrots, peas and carrots, peas and carrots.
The things you learn.
Right. That's why I couldn't remember Jackie Robinson's name, because I got crap like that in my head.
Which is useful, but just not at that particular moment. It wasn't helpful. It was, yeah. Oh yeah, I got all kinds of stuff like that. That's why more often than not I'm quiet, because that's what's going through my head. It's like, no, you sit there in the little file and you're like, no, that's no,
rifling through that filing cabinet.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. All righty. Okay, recording. You're listening to the Superman Super Show, episode number 40, the Slot Machine Racket. Hello, and welcome to the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Ed, and 1,000 miles over there to my left is another host, Mr. Steven Orr.
Hello, hello. I'm not going to do all 4 points.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello.
So what is that? The Three Stooges bit, right?
Yep.
Is that who did that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question in our banter portion here.
Okay.
In regards to something that you put on the forum, I don't know, sometime this week, that you were going to read on the Marvel service next month, or the DC service next month, and on the Marvel service in 6 months, these books
Yep.
that are coming out this week. So
Yep.
my question is this. I pay attention to uh, digital novels, to
Hmm.
ebooks, but in relation to the physical book, I don't know. So my question is this. Is this same physical digital divide in prose as it is in comic books?
It is not. Um, Comic books and really, I guess, movies, as far as I know, are the only forms of entertainment because music uh, and prose novels or just word books in general, yeah, they are typically digital and physical same day.
Okay. With that being said, bookstores are for prose what comic book shops are for comic books. If bookstores, which it's my understanding coming out of the pandemic, independent bookstores, the number of independent bookstores are on the rise. People are opening new independent bookstores. So the bookstore numbers are rising. And they're not bitching and whining about that same day physical. Why are comic book shops not in that boat, but in the oh boo hoo, you'll sink us boat to where we have to
Well,
wait?
and here's the thing: digital comic books are released for sale same day that the physical comic books are released.
Okay.
They just don't go over to either the DC or the Marvel app where
Oh,
you spend a certain amount a month or
okay.
a year to
Okay.
read all you want.
That's
But
okay.
the reason for that is because of our independent local comic book stores. They don't want that happening because they think it will take away from their sales, which it's not gonna. It's just not. It's, we could do an entire podcast about digital versus physical comic book sales and how it's funny whenever I see folks talking about that online. The people who buy physical comic books, they don't do the digital, and they get pissed off that digital's even out there.
Right. Right.
And it's like, I don't care if it's digital, I'm going to get it at the comic book store. So digital is only winning over the people that probably weren't going to the comic book store anyway
Right.
because of expense or not wanting to get out and all that crap. So yeah, and from what I understand, when places like Comixology first started, uh, digital comic sales were going to be cheaper than cover price. They were going to be, like 50% less or something.
Right.
And this may be a rumor that I read, and it may not be true, but I feel like I've read somewhere that a lot of these comic book retailers, because they're almost like a union. They the
Yeah.
distributors talk to them and they get their opinions and whatnot. And so some of the bigger retailers did not want Comixology selling books for less than somebody would pay for in their store. And so they didn't, which I don't know, it's silly.
Okay.
I think if digital comics was going to destroy the local comic book store, it would have done it a long time ago.
Yeah. And I see now where my thinking was off. You can buy digital comics, but I was
Yep.
thinking of these uh, a la carte
Yeah.
services. Those are
Right.
the ones that are affected because you would be able to consume much more than what you're actually paying for.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you want to buy the book, you can buy
Yeah.
it digitally on the same
Yep.
day, just like you can buy it physically. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
Because
I got
this week, for example, I did pick up Human Target number 11,
you. So
which
you
was
wouldn't
released
have to
this
wait
week.
for it.
Yeah, I've been getting those when they came out anyway, even though I can now wait a month
Yeah.
to read it on the DC app. Since I started the series, I figured I'd end the series. But Doug has mentioned in the chat here. I agree with you, Stephen. I don't think there is any lost physical sales because of digital.
No, not
But,
now. I
no.
definitely, like you, I see two very distinct camps.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah,
know,
definitely. And here's the thing. I understand that fear from local comic book stores, from the independent comic book shop, because it did happen with music.
mhm.
Once you could get music digitally, um, you know, the local record store, unless they're kind of a niche thing dealing with vinyl
Yeah,
or used records,
used,
stuff like
right,
that, they're more of a they cater to folks who are collectors who want that physical
right.
media, which is basically the music version of a comic book store.
But
But the big, like Tower Records, for example, there's a great documentary out there. Documentary, I said it wrong, about Tower Records, about how they were just the biggest name in music retail, and then when digital started, they made bad investments and
but
bad decisions, and boom, they just destroyed them.
but was it digital, or was it Walmart and Best Buy and all these other places that started selling music, so that while you were there purchasing other
Yeah,
things, oh, you can also get, and you don't have to go to your specialty store anymore to get that.
with Tower Records, that's part of it, and part of it was digital. But when you watch the documentary, I mean, they tell you straight out front that the guy who owned and ran that business, he was basically, he's like, all right, we're going to do this, and we're going to open stores here and here and here and here, and he sunk a lot of money into it,
Mhm.
and um, because they were so in debt, uh, when stuff like digital sales started happening, they were not able to then sell enough to get them out from under that debt. And
Right,
so
right.
if the guy will tell you, he says right on in that documentary, if we had made some better financial decisions, we would probably still be around today. There wouldn't be as many stores,
No, no.
but there's always going to be people out there that want to go to a record store, plain and
Right,
simple. Just like there will always be people out there that want to go. They not only do they want the physical comic books and they want to hold them in their hands and they want to put them in a bag and a board, they want to go to a place where other like-minded people have gathered. you know,
you want to go to a place where people know their name,
that's right.
not to drink, to read.
Nope. To drink in the comic goodness.
All right. Today, folks, and Doug live with us, we're looking at the Slot Machine Racket, which appeared in Superman #5. This is the first story from Superman #5, the first of 4, I think, original stories, which is the
Yep.
most so far in an issue of Superman, and I think will be an ongoing thing. That the
Issue 4 had 4 new
Oh, did it?
stories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's where it started.
And Doug tells us I still get some physical issues monthly and physical collected editions of stuff I really like. Most everything else I read digital now because it's more convenient. Yes, preach it, son. And I don't have to store them. Oh, preach it. That'll
Yeah,
preach.
I mean, I'm the perfect example. The only reason I started reading comics again was because of digital,
Right.
because of places like Comixology Unlimited and the Marvel app.
Yep.
And yeah, I do get the occasional new issue digitally, but I don't frequent the stores anymore. I don't like to get out. So they weren't getting my business anyway.
Anyway, right. But
Yeah.
now they're getting a portion of your business at least. So
The comic book companies are, the
yeah,
stores are
yeah,
not.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody out there listening to me, I don't mean to offend you. but I'm not worried about
Yeah.
the comic book stores. That's your issue. That's not my issue.
That's yeah, that's
So
always something that I have had a problem with, when people will stand up on message boards or Twitter or wherever and basically uh, say it's my responsibility
right.
to ensure that your local businesses stay in business. And it's like,
You've got to
look,
support your local comic
I
shop. It's
yeah, if I had money, I would support my local business, but I am a broke man who is trying to support 3 kids and a wife and some cats, and I'm going to go get my groceries where it is cheapest. I'm
right.
sorry that Walmart is an evil corporation, but
But
I
yeah,
gotta, I gotta do what's best for me and my family.
real life is what it is.
Exactly.
Alrighty, guys. Superman 5 is written for us by Jerry Siegel. The art was by, let's see, what do I have? The pencils by Joe Shuster, although actually it was signed by Joe Shuster. I believe it was actually penciled by Paul Cassidy.
Yeah, what we have here on the show notes. This is taken directly. It's literally copy and pasted from Mike's Amazing World of Comics. It lists writer Jerry Siegel, artist Joe Shuster, artist Wayne Bourne. So,
Yeah, the pencils are by Paul Cassidy and Wayne Boring, and then the inks are by Paul Cassidy, assuming on his stuff, but also Paul Loretta, assuming on Wayne Boring's part of it.
and I
And
noticed,
go
I
ahead, sir.
noticed real quick, there is a typo in the description when you get to the name Slug Kelly. It
Slug.
says Sug,
Yes,
S-U-G. It's Slug.
it could have been Sug. I mean, would it really have made a difference?
No,
He's a low
not
life
in the
anyways, but
yeah,
yeah.
not in the grand scheme.
And for those of you that are keeping track, Superman #5 has a cover date of summer 1940 with an on sale date from Mike's Amazing World of Comics indicating May 10, 1940. January, February, March, April, May, June. That's kind of spring. It's not really
Yeah.
summer, but okay. So we won't quibble. It's 1940. It was a different world. I said that a couple episodes ago. So. All right, and according to Mike's Amazing World, here is what happened. Angered by shopkeepers using slot machines to gain money from children, Clark Kent and Lois Lane visit the racketeer Slug Kelly, the owner of the machines. Kelly tries to bribe the reporters to keep the story out of the newspapers. When they won't take the bribe, Kelly locks them up and forces Lois to sign a statement indicating the Daily Planet's editor, George Taylor, is a partner with Kelly. The statement is taken to a rival newspaper, the Morning Pictorial. Clark breaks out of the room he was in and confronts Kelly as Superman. He destroys the rigged slot machines and sets fire to the building. Then he rescues Lois and recovers the records of Kelly's crimes. Lois and Clark return to the planet where the story about Taylor's partnership with Kelly has turned up. Examining the records he recovered as Superman, Clark learns the location of all the slot machines. He travels around town smashing said machines. Finally, he forces a confession from Kelly admitting that the machines were fixed. During the trial, Kelly's connection to Taylor is disproved and justice is done. And so, had a different feel to it, didn't it, Stephen?
It really did. There was a lot. I felt like there was just a lot going on in this story.
Mhm.
And in fact, when we get to the point where Slug is basically, arrested or whatever for his crimes, I thought we were done. And then we get this whole other sequence with Superman going around and destroying the slot machines. So this one, I I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, it did feel, it's like it felt to me, story wise and art wise, that it kind of went up a level compared to what has been going on before.
True, true. You
And
incorporated the kids, so
yeah,
that's a big deal for anybody, any generation, anytime. When you start affecting the kids, that's
yeah. And I also feel, and I don't know if this is true, but starting with Superman issue number 4 and then going into Superman issue number 5, when we were reading the stories from Superman number 4, and then now we're reading Superman number 5, and then you compare the Action Comic stories between these two, I almost feel like DC is, or the creators or whoever, is putting in more time and care on the Superman stories than the Action Comic stories.
Okay.
And maybe that's because Action Comics is an anthology. And so the Superman stories, while they are basically the cover page now, that's why most people are buying Action Comics is for Superman by this point. The Superman title is Superman and Superman only. So that's plus they only come out 4 times a year at this point. So they can probably spend more time on it.
Okay. And I think in my mind to follow the track that you're on, the Action Comics, yes, people may be buying for the Superman story, but there's 5 or 6 or 8 other stories.
Yep.
If the Superman story is,
Right. Yeah.
but in Superman's book, Superman's stories have to be solid
Yep.
because that is all you get. And that is absolutely why people are buying this book is for
Yep.
Superman.
So that single character has to carry that entire book.
Right. Even though they're shorter stories, but you're going to remember, oh man, yeah, the last time I bought Superman, but with Action, well, I didn't like that Superman bit. Well, that's okay. Read that story about the magician dude or the story about the spy or so yeah. And you're right. I feel the stories have been striking me the same way that you stated. They just seemed better, more solid, I guess,
Yep.
in the
Yeah.
Superman book than in Action.
Yep.
Looking at the splash page, is it me or does Superman kind of look like he's skydiving?
He looks like he's skydiving.
He certainly isn't flying. We're not there yet anyways, but
Right.
okay. But it's like he kind of doesn't have that jumping kind of look either. It's actually, this is almost a Spider-Man kind of pose.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
This, to me, looks more as far as somebody maybe jumping over a building or jumping from one building to another. This looks more natural. This is kind of what I would expect over when it looks like he's running in midair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here he is. This looks like he has gone up and he's falling. And this is how he would be falling.
Yep.
Yeah. I noticed that right away. That it's like, to me, I'm thinking, well, it looks like he's skydiving there with the all spread out. And for those of you that don't have access to the book, he's spread out his arms and legs, kind of like skydivers will when they are falling, parallel to the earth. They have that arms to go as slowly as they can. Yeah, there it is. And that's rotate that like, what would that be? 90 degrees. And that's how he's been drawn here. But
I blew it up.
So what else? And we'll get there here in a little bit, but this is also the first mention of the morning pictorial.
Yeah.
Which will go on, I think, to continue to be a rival newspaper in name of theirs. It'll be one that you can put your finger on that is a rival paper.
Yep.
Okay. So that synopsis was fairly solid. Like you indicated, though, there's a lot of in between interstitial kind of things that's going on. I like finally, because it annoys me to no end, and I don't bring it up because it always goes on. I don't like, and if this phrase offends anyone, I apologize, but it's a phrase that I grew up with, right or wrong. I'll go ahead and say that. I don't like the milksop Clark Kent. It bothers me. The
I get it,
lead,
but yeah.
the lead is like not a lead. It's no lead. You would not follow his lead for anything. That
It is very it's sometimes, the idea behind it makes sense
yes,
for him. It's like I have to act like a coward at all times so nobody would ever believe that I am Superman. But sometimes they don't really follow that rule every single time. Kind of like with Lois supposedly always hating Clark, and yet there are other times where she's like, I'm going to put myself in danger because Clark may get hurt if I don't, you
right.
know?
And, and he can. And off the top of my head, I'm not sure if it's this story. It's probably this story. She is physically assaulted. There's plenty of things he can do that would not make him appear
Yeah.
superhuman to protect his one. I think that I am so old school. Okay, if something was being done, like happens to Lois, to my woman, the woman that I have, you are darn skippy. I'm going to do something. I may
Yep.
lose. That's
Yep.
fine, but I'm not going to not. I will do something. And the
Well, and
fact that he just does nothing at times, I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
uh, come on.
The Christopher Reeve Superman movies, I think, handled that fairly well in some situations where it's almost like he would, as Clark Kent, he may do something to stop somebody in front of him that's doing something like that, but he does it in a way that looks like, oops, I fell and knocked this person over and they hit their head and now they're unconscious, like a
Exactly.
clumsy Clark, stuff
There
like that. But
there's he has superpowers. There are
yeah,
so many things that he could do with his breath, with his eyes, with super speed, with just all of these things, but he does nothing. And I'm like, "Oh,
yeah.
no,
And that,
you're a coward, dog. That's exactly what
yes,
you're a
yes,
coward."
yeah. And
Oh,
I made some notes about this story, and my first one actually has to do with that a bit because um, looking at page 3, panel 3. So there were kids in that store. The guy had enticed them in, come use my slot machine, and maybe you'll win a bunch of money. And then after they lose all their money, uh, most of the kids decide to stay to try to win their money back. But one
right.
of them says, "No, I got to get to school. I don't want to be late. I can't." The other kids, "Oh,
Okay.
we're going to play hooky," but this kid is so upset or in a daze or whatever, he walks out into the street and is almost hit by a car. And Clark actually thinks to himself, all right, I can't just let this happen. I have to do something, even if it exposes myself. And he
Right.
jumps out and tackles the kid and saves him, right? Well, I made a note here that in panel 3, like this dude comes up and goes, "You have nerves of steel." And
Mhm.
Clark thinks to himself, they've no inkling of my true identity yet. I found that the use of the word yet very interesting. Like he knows that eventually they're going to find out that he is Superman.
They'll figure it
But
out.
for now, he has to stick with this. And so what's he do? He faints. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, and then when he wakes up, oh, what? I put my life in danger. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, which is pretty silly.
What he had done, again, for those of you that don't have the story, is he tackled the child that was going to be hit in such a way that the truck passed over them. He split the tires and the truck just
Yeah,
drove by. And then when they're congratulating him and talking to him, and it's almost like, I did what?
yeah,
And then he falls back into that
yeah,
um, milk sop, fop,
yeah. Because
whatever, however you want to describe
right,
it, cowardly, I guess, to
yeah.
to try to not insult anybody. Um,
Because we
because
even have Lois at that point is like, wow, Clark, just when I thought that you were not a man, you finally do something. And
yep.
he's, oh, I fainted.
But then when he wakes back up, yeah, she's like, correction. I must have been out of
Right.
my mind to believe you
Yep.
had any spunk in you. So
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
it reverts right back to type immediately. So much so that she escorts him to a um, foods general Jensen's. I guess that's the name of the store, Jensen's Foods, um, to get a nerve tonic of some sort
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
the
I
the dude
wondered.
at the store
I
gives him.
was speculating what they, because my immediate thought was, let's get something, in you, and I'm like, oh, is she gonna go get him drunk or something? Are they gonna
Yeah,
down some whiskey? And but they never. I don't think they
no.
actually say what it is he's
She,
drinking, but
she got him a Coca-Cola.
yeah,
That's
there you go.
fun.
Um, do you mind if I just kind of go through my
No,
notes real quick? There's just a
go right
couple of
ahead.
them. On page 5, panel 4, I it just makes me laugh so hard whenever this is a perfect example of it. Lois confronts the bad guy and gets all up in his face, and she threatens him. Yeah, we're gonna make sure that the Daily Planet does this, and you're gonna. I can't remember what she says, but the guy comes around the desk all angry, and then gets in Clark's face. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, is that what you're gonna do? Because
yeah.
he's obviously not gonna push around Lois,
No,
and
he's not
so
going to hit a
poor
woman.
Clark is like, what's happening? Um, and then while that's happening, if you notice, so he comes around so in panel 4, the guy comes around the desk. Is that so? And gets in Clark's face, and Clark's like, gulp. Oh, well, in a way, I guess it is. And so then panel 5, despite the fact that the guy is just like, all right, well, how about I give you a bribe? At that point, he's calmed down within the span of a panel, and yet Clark is cowering behind Lois, and it looks like, because he's clutching her arm like he's
It
using her
almost
as a
looks like
human
he's yeah,
shield. Yeah,
he's
yeah,
moving her in
exactly.
front.
Yep. I just was like, wow, Clark, come on. I loved when, so they of course they won't take the bribe, so the guy has his henchmen lock both of them up separately, and then of course while Clark is behind his locked door, he puts on his Superman costume and he bursts out, and there's just this, it's like a page and a half of him just barreling through this building or whatever it is, and he's just destroying slot machines, and he's ripping doors off hinges, and he's like, I wrote down specifically, he is like a force of nature
Yep.
during that scene, because there's not one panel where he's not looks like he's in full sprint, and he's just destroying things. The last note I had, page 7, panel 4, Superman smacking the bullet back at the gunman. Gunman fires a shot at him, and Superman just swats the bullet out of the air and knocks it back to the guy, and the bullet shoots the gun out of the guy's hand. I thought that was pretty cool. And the way it's drawn, it looks like he backhands it. He's just like, pap, and just knocks the bullet back. I thought that was, every once in a while they put in something like that that's just like, all right, that was pretty cool. That's all I had. Those are the only notes I took.
Okay. The page after that, holding the 2 machine guns barrel to barrel. That was kind of cool.
Yes. Yes.
And the men weren't hurt. They were
Right.
firing, or they were getting ready to fire. But once he had the ends of the barrels together, they fired. Obviously, nobody got hurt or anything.
Right.
It messed up the machine guns. Looks like they're, I believe, the Thompson submachine guns with the big
Yep.
round cartridges on them, the barrel or whatever those are called. A narcotic gas grenade.
Yeah, and because of, I found that sequence really weird, and I wonder if when the Marvel method, for example, they would just basically tell the artist, all right, this is what is going to happen in the book, and so the artist would kind of do their own storyboards. Basically, they'd put in all the action, and then the writer would go back and kind of, based on what the artist had done, they would fill in the script and the narration.
Right. Right.
Well, this sequence, I feel like when Clark passes out from the gas, that the writer is like, oh, well, the gas actually wouldn't affect him. So I'm going to put this little word balloon in here where he's thinking, I'll play unconscious just for laughs. And the only reason I think that is because after he passes out just for laughs and they attack him with axes and bats and stuff and nothing happens to him, there's a moment where he sits up and he's got his hand on his head like he's dizzy, like, oh, what's going on? And I don't understand why he would continue at that point with, I'm still going to pretend.
Right.
And then
right.
because the whole I'm going to do this for laughs doesn't really pay off in any, it's not like he jumps up and goes, ha ha, I was tricking you or anything like that. So just that panel of him sitting up and holding his head like he just woke up makes me feel like the artist saw that, all right, I'm going to make him pass out because of the gas grenade. And the writer's like, no, that wouldn't affect him. So I gotta put this little blurb in here.
Right.
To make up for that. Yeah.
And this scene, in the next story, are the first 2 times that anybody takes an axe to him and finds out that it doesn't work. But they do it again in the next story, in a different for a different reason. But the effect on the axe of Superman's body is exactly the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
I really enjoyed. I could see that. I could see the motion of that happening if this was like an animated feature, because the grenade hits in one panel, the next panel he's on his back, and then the panel after that, there's like 3 guys around him just beating on him with axes and stuff, and I could see that in a cartoon. Just suddenly they swarm him and they're just like bam, 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 bam. It just it made me laugh out loud when I read that, got to that panel.
Putting the torches out with his hands, that was something a little different. We've not seen that before. The stopping the vault door by putting his fingers in it, it's which is reminiscent. It struck me when I read the next story, but reading this one, I was like, oh, well, that's. But then the next story, they show that he is super strong down to his fingers as well.
Yep.
Which we've never seen the minutia of being invulnerable. Just shoot here in the chest but now they're hitting him with stuff, and he's blocking a vault door from closing with his finger. I mean, he's getting his fingers jammed in there, and of course it's not going to hurt him. And
I liked how that was actually a trap, because the guy's like, no, don't go in the vault, and tries to slam the door. And so of course, what does Superman do? Or what does Superman do? He stops the vault from being locked, goes inside, and the guy's like, ha ha, and he shuts the door and locks it on him.
Yeah, here finally we have a bad guy he's not a supervillain. He's just a regular thug who is thinking a little bit more in dealing with all of the things Superman can do and the things that don't hurt him. And it's almost like he's making a list. Try this, kind of like Luther, kind of like the Humanite have done. Try this, no. Try that, no. And he's going down through these things like he's looking for something that works. We have all of these different attempts to injure him. None of them do anything.
Yeah, he's definitely not stupid, but there is one thing that he does near the end that if he hadn't done it, he didn't let his pride take over, because he'd come up with a plan so that they could get out of town and go on the lam. But as they're heading out of town, they see one of the shopkeepers taking one of the slot machine out of the shop. The guy doesn't want it in his shop. He was forced to put it in there. That was the whole thing with this, is that Slug Kelly. It's almost like they were doing a protection racket, but it's like, you will put these slot machines in your store, or your store will mysteriously burn down, or something like that. Well, some of the shopkeepers were okay with it, but this was one who didn't want it in his store. And so finally, the guy's just like, screw this. And he starts pulling the slot machine out. And they just happened to be driving by, and had Slug Kelly just went like, look, because he goes, all right, we got to stop and do something about this. And his men are like, no, boss, we got to get going. And had he not stopped, he probably could have gotten away.
Yep. And they have Lois with him at that point too.
Yeah.
So he'd have gotten away with Lois.
Is this the one where I don't think this is the one where Superman is hanging on the side of the car? No, that's the next.
No,
okay,
that's the next story.
Okay.
In the synopsis, though, it did say Superman set fire to the building, and he didn't. It wasn't him.
Not really. Maybe they're just trying to blame it on him because he didn't fully extinguish both torches or something.
Well, but he did. It said he put them out with his hand. But then in that one panel, meanwhile, in the adjoining room, one of the firebrands sets the building up. It's like, Superman put them out. So, I mean,
yeah.
And then, like you said, he has the plan, and the plan is working, and all they have to do is get out of town. And short of Superman going out of town and finding them, they're gold,
Yeah.
But it's like, no, here's somebody that's not doing what I told him to do, and I'm going to stop and reprimand him for. And Superman happens to be in the area because he's hunting down all the different places where the slot machines were put. And this is the next one on his list. So it's 100% coincidence.
And he literally pops out of nowhere. Slug gets out of his car, and he goes up to the shopkeeper, and he's like, gonna get rid of my machine, eh? I'm gonna give you the beating of your life. And the shopkeeper's like, no, don't strike me, please. And then suddenly Superman is there. Surprised? And I love basically so Slug is about to punch the shopkeeper in the face. Superman drops out of the sky, puts his hand in between him so that Slug punches his hand, which in essence is like punching a steel wall.
Right. Yeah.
And then Clark just picks him up, throws him back in the car, and actually says, back into that car. And then lifts the car up and jumps to the top of a school building, pulls him out of the car, dangles him over the roof of the school building, and makes him confess to all the kids that he rigged the slot machines. They were never going to win. Just so funny.
Blocking that punch from Slug, uses his hand again.
Yeah.
Small part of his body to show that he's invulnerable.
Yep.
And then, Superman has brought these bad guys in, and it's worked in the past, but apparently this time it doesn't work because they say, sorry, we can't hold them unless there are witnesses who overheard. Well, I'm your witness. I overheard it. No, that's not good enough. So instead of Superman's word, we'll take the word of kids. I don't care how many kids they are, but they're kids.
Yep.
It's like, oh, okay, guys.
Well, they didn't understand back then how kids can be influenced. The whole thing with, what was it, in the 80s where there was the whole panic that kids were telling their parents or whatever that their teachers were making them do satanic rituals, and there was all this investigation, and then you found out that never happened. They were being influenced by the investigators into saying all this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't realize they were saying the wrong thing. So they didn't know all that back then. So
anyways, that's where So that's where they leave Superman in Metropolis, is not believing his word, but taking the word of a bevy of children over his, and so it's like, oh, okay, well then you're right, Superman. We believe the story. We don't believe you. We believe them, but we believe the story that you were telling us now.
Or maybe they were finally getting to the point where they're like, all right, well, I mean, I believe you, but a jury will never convict him
Oh, okay.
because you forced the confession out of him, and you're the only one that heard it.
Yeah, coercion,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, never happened before, but
yeah.
now all of a sudden it's like,
Well, and
yeah.
regardless how many people heard the confession, he still coerced it. He still threatened to kill the guy if he didn't
Yes,
confess.
tell him
So,
or I'll drop
yeah,
you.
exactly. So, regardless, it's still not going to hold up in court.
Which is not the first time that's happened.
Right. That's
I
his.
think just about every story he coerced somebody.
Yeah. That's his MO. That's his
You,
number one move.
you've
Confess
seen
or I
what I
will
can.
kill you.
You've seen what I can do. Do you want me to do that to you?
Yeah.
Basically that's it. So, oh man,
District attorney's worst nightmare is Superman.
yes, yes. Um, okay. I think I'm out of stories to
Yeah.
share about the story.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Until next week, I'm Ed. That's Steven, and this has been the Superman Super Show. Ciao.
Bye. Okay, let me save this file. All right, 3 episodes. It's not bad.
Yep.
Okay, so this one is going to be episode 40.
38, 40? 39?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the first feedback episode we did would be episode 39. And the second feedback episode will stick in somewhere later.
Okay.
Got some stray cats in the house right now.
Does that mean he's a ladies' cat? Feeling Casanova?
He's going to rock this town. Yeah, we've
Rock it
been
all night
slowly, a couple weeks ago, we were slowly starting to take these cats into the Humane Society and have them fixed. And it's not as expensive as taking your own cat in to do it, because it's kind of a catch and release type of thing. We take them in, they get them fixed, and then we take them home and release them back out into the wild, basically. But one of the things that they do when they do that is they clip one of their ears, the top of their ear, so that if it comes back to the Humane Society, or somebody in the know is going to know, oh well, they've already handled this one. So, but one of the cats, we call her Smokey because she's gray, and she's just this solid, like a smoky gray color, but it's just solid gray, and she is just a beautiful looking cat. And we've kind of decided we don't want to have her ear clipped. So we're gonna, when I take them in the next batch, which will be 2 of them, she'll be one of them. On Friday, I'm gonna ask them, can we just pay regular price because we're gonna keep her in the house? So we'll pay a little bit more to have her done. So that'll give us 4 freaking cats in this house. But the ones that
needs a buddy. So
he's cross-eyed and weird.
We call him Manny, short for man eater. All right, Manny.
Okay, yeah, but put him down.
He's too wiggly, but his eyes, he's got kind of cross eyes, and he looks just adorable because of it.
Okay. Yep.
But he's got a bit of a poopy problem. He tends to just poop for no reason. He'll just be like, you'll just be holding them, and suddenly you got a little poop on you. So. But the 2 we've taken in so far, not only did they spay and neuter them, they give them their updated shots and all that stuff, and then we let them. There's one. This is Jet. Yeah, if you can see the ear right there. But we let them spend time in the house because, why not? And they don't like to stay in the house too awful long. They love coming in. They get really rambunctious with the other cats, and they have a lot of fun. And then eventually they're like, nope, we're ready to go back outside because we learned last week that using the shed behind our house, they get up on top of the house and they go to the very top level of the roof, there's like a flat spot. We were I was coming home from picking up my daughter from school, and as we're coming up the road, we look up and there's just two cats up on the roof just hanging out, and it's like, oh, okay.
They go up there to sun. Yep.
So I think these ones that we bring in the house, that's like, all right, we like being in here, but you know what? It doesn't beat the freedom of being able to climb to the roof.
Yep, they're outdoor cats. You can't
Yep.
get that out of them. Doug says 4 is a lot of cats.
It is. There's a really funny song somewhere on the internet that I saw at one point where it's a girl talking about her cats, and she's like, I have 6 cats. I want all the cats. 6 is not too many cats. It's a really funny. And then she introduces each one of her cats in the song and tells you a little something about them, like this one's an asshole or something like that. It's if I can find it again, I'll send you the link. It's really funny.
That's pretty cool.
4, I mean, in the size of this house, 4 is a lot of cats. But you know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. And the Smokey, who the fourth one, like this morning, she came in when I went out to feed the outdoor cats. She came in, and a lot of times when they do that, they turn right back around when they realize I'm giving them food. But she stayed inside, and she was inside for like 2 hours, and she ended up just laying on the floor next to me while I was working, and eventually she wanted to go out. So she comes in a lot, and she's exploring a lot more, and she's kind of getting more comfortable like around me and stuff. So I think she's going to be a good addition. The black one that I held up, hell no, he's a good cat, but man, he just gets into stuff. He is rambunctious. He'll tear this house to the ground. But yeah, they're good cats. We were there when they were born, so we've watched them grow. They might be 10 months old at this point. All righty. That's all we got, man. I think I'm gonna go try to get some sleep. Hopefully this coffee won't keep me up too long. But I was dragging ass. Every third word out of my mouth was a yawn. So
yeah, that's dragging for sure.
I needed a little bit of something.
Because you went to the dentist, man. Those people screw you up.
Oh man, yeah. That I was really happy this time, but it's because it was a new dentist. I just was like when she came in first, the lady who sat me down and got me ready, she put a little numbing stuff on my gums for when they would come in and give me the shots, and almost immediately this whole area just went freaking numb, just from a topical, and it's never really done that before, and I'm like, all right, so this works. But then literally 5 minutes later, when the dentist came in to give me the shots, I told her, I said, now I just want to remind you that being a redhead, I do need extra Novocaine, and she's like, yeah, we got that down here. We remember that. I said, the numbing agent that she put on my gums 5 minutes ago, it's literally done. It's gone. The numbing is gone. It lasted less than 5 minutes. And so she quickly put on some more, and yeah, I felt nothing. And typically these days I don't. Dentists are pretty good about that now. They want you to come back. They don't want to hurt you. It's like,
right.
Back in the day, they were like Steve Martin from the
Little Shop
of Horrors.
Yep.
But I just usually spend though the entire time with the drill, just white knuckling, just waiting for that jab of pain that I know is going to come.
It's gonna hurt,
but it doesn't. And this time I put headphones on, and I had music cranked up so loud that it overpowered the sound of the drill on my teeth. And I
Dude,
just
okay.
literally just kind of zoned out, and it really relaxed me. So definitely going to do that from now on.
Cool beans.
But
Doug said, have a great night. Thanks for a great show. If you're still there, Doug, thanks, sir. You too.
Thank you, Doug. We appreciate you coming by every single time we do this. It's really good. And you contribute. We wouldn't have known Jackie Robinson for that episode had you not been here. So really appreciate that. It says we have 2 people watching. I don't know who the second one is, but
I'm not sure either.
hello.
Might have been Terry. I'm not sure if it was Terry or not. She
Yeah,
never
maybe.
said anything.
Maybe.
So
Yeah. I know that sometimes, because he would do it with you guys on Boom Addiction, Peter Rios will just kind of come in and watch and then just not say anything.
Yeah, he'll lurk.
Because he's a punk.
Yep.
Coming at you, Rios.
And you'll never hear this. So
that's right. This is not going out on an episode, so I'm gonna tell you.
There you go.
He's been doing those. He's done 2 of them now. The book of the month thing for the Daily Rios, where it's like you email and give him a couple of options, and then you come on and talk about the book. So he hopefully it's going to be next in February. I'm going to come on and we're going to talk about Murder Falcon.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
Really excited about that.
So he's not read Murder Falcon.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I hope he likes it because I'm rereading it again for the first. Only the first time. It's my first reread.
Right. Okay.
And I know that because one of the things I loved about the book so much is that kind of like Do a Power Bomb. Did you read Do a Power Bomb? It's like such a ridiculous concept. It just sounds on the surface ridiculous. But by the end of it, he gets like, oh my God, that last scene with her mom in the audience. Literally in tears. And then later when I'm showing my wife, look at the tears again. And so he's really good about taking something that on the surface sounds just completely ridiculous. And Murder Falcon sounds so ridiculous. And it, at least for the first issue, you don't really get a lot of that deepness that is going to come in the series. So I hope Peter doesn't read that first issue and go, oh my God, what has he got me reading? This is so dumb. Because it's all about how metal will destroy all evil and all you got to do is shred but then they introduce, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper as the series goes on, and it's just such. Doug agrees. Murder Falcon is spectacular. It is so good.
Do a Power Bomb. The first, gotcha was that dude was her dad.
Right. I did not see that coming.
I was not expecting that at all. Now that that comes pretty early, but still, it's like, dude.
Yeah, I think I said the F word out loud when I saw that reveal. I just like, fuck.
And then then you find out, oh well, mom was killed in the ring. Oh well, that's why he's okay. Yeah. Oh, and they're in heaven because they're in heaven. Who wrestling God? Okay, no,
right.
She is in the audience watching her daughter. Yeah, it's like,
so good. And he's so good about that stuff. He did a small 3 or 4 page story in one of those Superman, I think they're called Red and Blue. They were like 3 or 4 issues. They're like anthologies of short stories that came out maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And he does one that's all about Jonathan, and it's so good. It's another one of those that you're almost in tears by the end of it. It's so good. It's just, it's pretty cool.
I'd like to see another chapter of Do a Power Bomb, but I don't think it's possible because of the way he
not
the way he ended that one, but just the way that story went.
And so far, that's kind of the way he does things. He did Extremity, which did have 2 volumes. I think it's the longest book he's done, well, except for Space Mullet, which he's yet to finish. Which again sounds ridiculous, but it's pretty good when you get into it. But yeah, he does the story, it's done, moves on to the next thing. He has yet to come back to something yet.
His writing is definitely the writing of a comic book fan. He grew up
Yep.
reading comics, and he writes like, well, man, if I have a chance to write a story
Yep.
for a comic, I'm gonna write this, and
Yep.
it's some off the wall thing, but it's like that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He's so good. Like I said, he takes what on the surface should be just a ridiculous concept, but he injects so much humanity into it
Hmm.
that by the end you've forgotten that you're reading a book about uh, mystical avatar,
Right. Yeah.
uh, half falcon, half man with a giant cybernetic arm that battles demons based on how well you play guitar. It's
Yeah.
so
It's not
good.
the big overarching. It's the
Yep.
minutia that he has you focusing on, and you
Yep.
forget, like you say, it's this. Even in comic books, it's like, oh, that's just
Yeah.
too
And
wild.
with Murder Falcon, it's this kind of a small story, and then after about 3 issues, he opens up the world a little bit more, and then an issue or two later, he opens it up, and it just, oh my God. It's
Yeah.
I know that when I talked about it in my very first Just Another Fanboy episode, when I brought Just Another Fanboy back, I think one of the things I said was I was really enjoying it, and just when I thought, here's like one of the best books I've ever read, then it gets better, and then
Mhm.
it's like, holy crap, books can't be this good, and then it gets better, a
Yeah.
third time, and
Yeah.
that's what he does.
He's a really good writer. I hope that
Yeah,
he doesn't get asked to do something that's long form, because I think
right.
that he needs to keep it very small and
Yeah,
compact.
yep,
That's where he really works the best, is
yep,
just
yeah,
not chapters, but just a complete story, very small, focused, 5 to 10 issues, and then that's it. Move on and do something completely different, completely off the wall again.
yep.
Yeah.
And his art is
Oh yeah.
amazing. Have you seen any of his? He does a lot of Star Wars. Um, what is that called when somebody hires you to do a sketch?
Original art.
Well, consignment. What is that called?
Uh, Commission.
Commission. He does a lot of Star Wars commissions, and I
Hmm.
know that he did his own like online web comic that was a Star Wars web comic, and you can't really find it anywhere, I don't think. But his his
Okay.
art normally is amazing, but his Star Wars stuff is like next level. And I would why Marvel has not put him on a Star Wars book, just doing like a 4-issue series about something,
Right.
they're missing out. Or maybe they have offered it to him and he just doesn't want to do it. But
Yeah.
his Star Wars art is just, oh my God, it is
Cool.
just the
I'll have to
greatest stuff I've ever seen. He does
look
a
and see
lot
if I
of
can find
like
something.
last year during maybe Inktober or something, he
Mhm.
did a lot of wrestlers. Like he did Jimmy the Superfly Snuka and a lot of the
Okay.
old school, the guys I know, because I don't know a lot of what's going on now. But he's just, I mean, nobody else but Daniel Warren would get me to buy a book about wrestling. I got nothing against wrestling, it just doesn't interest me anymore. And yet he announces, I got a new book coming out, it's about wrestling. I was like, ugh, come on. I guess I got to buy this book about wrestling. It's like when Tom Taylor was announced that he was doing Nightwing. Never been interested in Nightwing. And it's like, my next book is going to be Nightwing. And I'm like, come on, Tom, don't make me buy a Nightwing book. And now I love Nightwing. So,
Doug says he's really got his storytelling style down. He's probably my
yeah,
favorite creator right now.
yeah,
Um,
me too.
he certainly is in my top 5 of both creators that do both,
Yeah,
which isn't as frequent as it used to be.
right.
Really, you
Yeah, it's
don't.
not.
That you have people really focusing on one or the other. It seems a lot more.
Yeah,
You don't have the John Byrne and the people
yeah.
like that.
The guy who's doing, I'm not really sure how you pronounce it, Kaya, Kaya, over on Image. It's like a fantasy book. He's
The book. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, he writes and draws that. He's one of those guys. He apparently was the artist on Now I don't remember. First Class something. I don't remember what it was. I didn't read it. But K is pretty good. It's a pretty good book so far.
Yeah, I've noticed you always pull it when it's on the list.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Yeah, I really like his art style. He's got kind of a style. He's, stylized, not normal looking type of art that I really kind of dig. But yeah, and what's really weird is that I have all of the Twig issues,
Yes.
and I still haven't read beyond issue 1 for some reason. And I loved
Oh.
issue 1.
Oh,
I
man,
just
that
it's
was-
like that. Yeah, Doug likes K as well.
Yeah.
That is, I guess, the problem with digital books is since they're all just kind of there in your library, unless you're really scrolling through because every time you put something new on there, that's what goes at the top. And
Okay.
anything else goes down to the bottom. So unless you're just constantly scrolling through to see what you have, you forget. And every
Oh,
once in
man.
a while, I'll just be like, oh, where's that one book? And then I'll go, oh, crap, I got to read Twig. Why haven't I read it yet?
You've got to
So,
finish Twig.
Yeah,
It's really
I need to.
Everything about the story leads you until the end,
Yeah,
and that's not where you end up.
really.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was
I need
like,
to read it.
oh man.
Even Karen, she had come into the room when I was reading the first issue, and she saw it over my shoulder, and she was like, wow, what is that? That looks amazing. Look at
Yes.
that, and it's
It
like,
really
yeah, it
does.
looks freaking great. Yeah.
Not just the artwork, but the world that he
Yeah.
created.
Yep.
It's very fun and very whimsical, but the story is the story can be taken a lot deeper than what it looks. If that's all you want is just the way it looks, it's perfectly entertaining. But well, there you go, Doug.
Yeah.
Or you like a lot of our books, depending
Right.
on how you want to look at it, man. But yeah, I was kind of sad when Twig finished because I was really enjoying it, really looking forward to it each month. And then the way it ended, I was just like, okay, wow.
Are they, without spoiling anything, did it end in a way that they could do more if they wanted to?
Well, sure, because first of all, Twig doesn't die. So if he's still alive, then there's always the
then you can keep going.
possibility. Yeah, you could write more stories about him being in the position that he's in, whatever they called that, the thing that his dad used to do that he is doing throughout you could write more stories about him doing stuff like that pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's
cool.
it's where the story ends.
Where the story ends up.
Not as much as how it ends, but where he is.
Well,
in his,
what I need to do, and I'll probably just go ahead and do that now, because what I've been doing is in my library, I have it filtered to only show the books that I've downloaded onto my tablet. So there's like 23 right now, and then that's that's what I focus on, and I try not to add anything to it until I take one off. So I just need to put Twig in there, and then I'll remember it.
Yeah, as soon as you finish that, say something on the forum or on Twitter or somewhere. Right. Let me know what you think.
They're downloading right now. So. Yeah, 5 issues. Come on, man. Why haven't you read the first one? You liked it. Why haven't you finished it? Yeah.
You could finish that in what, an hour?
I'm kind of focused on Madman right now because that's
whatever.
The next. I think I have because I put out Madman Part 14 today. I've already recorded Part 15, which is going out next week. And I'm going to continue with Madman through the second week of March.
But you told us you weren't going to necessarily record an episode for each book.
No,
I
said
you said you would.
No, I said what I was gonna. what I was going to do was, instead of separating them out, like doing a Madman and then doing an Elf Quest and then doing a GI Joe, and before you know it, the previous Madman episode was like 6 weeks ago. I was going to focus on just one and put out a number of episodes until I get tired and I want to switch over to something else. And so that's what I'm doing.
What I heard, I remember that. But what I also heard was that you were going to record whenever you wanted to and not feel that you had to record after every book that you read. And so you might read 3 or 4 books before you record another episode.
Well,
and
but
I'm assuming what you meant is 3 or 4 issues of Madman, not 3 or 4 books. So
because technically I'm doing that. Basically what I meant was regardless of what the issue was, Madman, the newest Human Target, whatever, I always felt like, okay, I'm going to determine what I'm going to read based on future podcast episodes, and anything I read has to become a podcast episode. Yeah. And I am like 2 or 3 issues ahead of Madman. I finished the entire first volume of the library edition before I recorded next week's episode. So I'm like a few issues ahead. And I basically, I just kind of decided, I'm going to read, because I would be like, all right, I've read this issue. I can't read the next one until I record this episode. But now I'm just like, I'm just going to read. And then when I'm ready to record part 15, which I did earlier in the week, then I'll just go back and review the story real quick before I say something about it.
You just lay it out right there in front of you. Doug says you need to read Twig too. So there you go. There's pressure. You need to read Twig.
Well, Doug here and Ed here telling me to read it. I'll read it there.
And the saving grace is it's not like we're trying to get you to read something crappy. So,
Yeah. And it's not like you're trying to get me to invest my time in a 300 issue series.
Yeah, you need to read Cerebus. Yeah,
right. That's exactly what I was thinking of. You guys aren't asking me to read Cerebus. So.
Cerebus,
yeah. And at the same time, I was going through the books that are on Comixology Unlimited, and I come across Invincible, because like the first 7, 8, 9 volumes are available to read for free through Comixology Unlimited, and that is a series that I've started so many times, and I get to a certain point and then something distracts me and I forget to go forward on it, and I have made a vow that I am going to finish Invincible by the end of the year. So
well, what the second season of the animated's getting ready to drop.
Yep.
So
I haven't finished Walking Dead yet either. That's one that I keep starting, and I get a little bit further every time, and then something distracts me. And
I got to the point in Walking Dead where I'm okay if I don't finish it. It's so alike. It's just so similar. Too much so to keep my interest, really.
I agree, because honestly, if I was as into it now as I used to be, I would have finished it by now.
Right.
But I am interested to see how it ends. And there's also a part of me that's like, look, you have invested so much time into this series. Finish it already, Well, but the same thing with it's the same thing with the Robert Jordan Wheel of Time books. I keep getting so far in the series, and then I get distracted for some reason. And it's like, you've invested so much time in that book series, you've got to finish it.
But if those things held your interest, then you would finish it. So there must be something about them that you lose interest.
I don't think it's me losing interest. I think it's more like an ADD part of me, where it's like something shiny flickers over here, and I'm like, ooh, I want to do this for now. And then 6 months go by, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was reading Walking Dead. And so I start to get back where I was, and I'm like, I don't remember a lot of what happened before this. Well, I better start from the beginning again, But I don't have any plans on getting back to that this year. Right now, the only promise I've made myself is to finish Invincible this year.
Invincible. Yep. Okay.
Otherwise, I'm not putting any pressure on myself.
What is
for
that?
anything.
70, 80 issues, something like that.
Something like that. Something like that. I don't. I don't know how many volumes of just the regular trades it is. I think the big compendium books. I think it's 4, but
Okay.
none of those are available for cheap. So
Compendiums never are. It's
Yeah.
like 25 issues each or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. But I, I'm reading my Madmans. I just finished issue 1 of Secret Wars 2.
Secret Wars 2. Yeah, I saw.
Whew, that
Yeah.
I'm trying to decide how I want to talk about that, because there's just something about it that I can't. It just seems.
It's not a problem at all, man.
I got Murder Falcon, and then I just have Saga. I want to read that, and then I just have a couple of other just things. I've got the Black Badge books and the Grass Kings in my downloads.
Yes,
I'll get to those
both
eventually.
Of those are very good. Both of those are very good.
The John Byrne Superman, because I have decided to move forward with a podcast on that. I've recorded 2 episodes so far.
Oh, okay.
I just haven't decided if I'm going to wait until, just keep recording them when I get a chance, and wait until July, which is when Man of Steel #1 came out in 1986, and do it that fashion,
right,
like John does with Superman in Crisis. Or if 6 or 7 episodes under my belt, I'll just go ahead and start. I don't know. I haven't decided.
No pressure, man.
But I'm not
entirely your call.
Yeah, and I'm not doing anything as far as putting too much effort into pre-production of the episodes. It's like I finish the issue, and if I got time to record that day, I sit down. I'm doing kind of like with this. I grab the synopsis off of the website, read the synopsis, go through the issue, talk about it while I'm recording.
There you go.
That's what I'm doing with Event or Else right now. The episode of Event or Else that comes out tomorrow, that's when I officially change the format to I'll give you the synopsis that I'm no longer going to write. I may fix it up depending on, because sometimes the synopsis they have on dcfandom.com, either it just wasn't written very well, or they just get stuff wrong. So it's like I have to fix some of that. But
right, yeah.
Other than that, I just do a synopsis, and then I just go through the book, and it's like, all right, no, this is something that makes me want to talk about something,
right.
And
yeah, this stuck out, and I wonder about this, and yeah.
But then I recorded the episode following issue 12 of Crisis with Peter.
Okay.
That's going to be a pretty fun episode when I get that put out. So
was that fun to do?
No. Yeah. I always enjoy talking to Peter.
Dude knows his stuff, man.
Oh yeah. He and I just had a lot of questions at the end of that when I finished. I think I was around issue 9 or 10. It's just like, I got a lot of questions about this book. I'm just going
to talk to somebody.
Yeah. And the first question that I wanted to ask him, the first thing that came up for me was, I wonder how people were reacting to this at the time it was hitting shelves. And so I think I IM'd him on Twitter, and I said, hey, were you buying Crisis when it was coming out in 85? And he goes, oh yeah, every month. And I said, would you like to get together and let me ask you some questions? He goes, I'm always ready to talk about the Crisis. So, and he even listened to some of the episodes and had questions for me based on some of the stuff I said. So Doug's looking forward to Byrne's Superman, and here's the thing about Byrne's Superman and post-Crisis Superman books. There's a lot of podcasts that have already done what I'm going to do. But
are there really?
Yeah. But most of them that I've kind of listened to, they don't do one issue at a time. They're not doing like I guess what an index show really would, one issue per episode. It's like they did it like we're going to do all of the Man of Steel mini in the first episode, and then we're going to do 4 issues in the next episode, and blah blah blah.
Okay.
Blah.
Now,
But
is this
most of those have already been done? It's already been done. They've gone through all of it. But
is that the John Byrne podcast?
yes, that's where I'm starting.
Okay, I know that there's a podcast that just talks about John Byrne books, and they tend to lump them together when they talk.
Yeah, my thing is I'm reading post-crisis Superman from the beginning, and it kind of like with this, you just see how far I get.
Okay.
You know, I hope, because there's just so much between when I stopped reading the John Byrne books to the death of Superman. Most of that I've never read.
Right.
And between the death of Superman and somewhere around Infinite Crisis, I didn't read any of that stuff either. Okay. So they're just, you know, for somebody who claims that Superman is his favorite comic book character, I've barely scratched the surface when it comes to reading Superman comics.
Well, I guess just be glad you're not a Batman fan.
Oh my God. There's so much Batman out there.
And right now, every month.
Oh my God.
So much
every
Batman
week.
Stuff.
There's at least 2 Batman related titles every single week.
Yeah.
At bare minimum.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it'd be like to truly be a Batman fan and want to keep up with all of that.
Doug likes the way I break the stories down.
Yep.
Break it down. But I've been reading the new Batman that Chip Zdarsky is writing. I'm really enjoying that, but I don't.
Yeah, actually, I think I have too. I'm 3 or 4 issues behind, which is like most of what he's done so far. But
it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff in it that every once in a while you're like, oh my God. I think if I tried to read this 10 years ago, I would have been like, nope, no, this is stupid. Because I got really sick of Batman for a while. It's like Batman can take out anybody, and I'm sick of that.
Yep.
And yet I'm reading this, and it's like, okay, Batman just did something crazy, and it was really fun, you know. So I like Chip Zdarsky.
Yeah,
he's
he's
another person that writes fun stuff.
Yeah, most people don't want to write fun anymore. They want to write some, intense, or they want to write world changing, or they want
to make their mark. It's like every story they tell, they want it to be the definitive story they've told.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's almost 10 o'clock, so I'm gonna let you all go.
All righty.
Maybe when I edit a couple of these Superman shows, maybe I'll send them to you guys and let you listen to them and see what you think.
Okay, that sounds fun. Yeah.
So
I like listening to your shit, man. Since way back in the day.
Your shit. I like listening to your shit. You're full of shit, but I like listening to it.
Yours is the first, and I think so far only podcast that I downloaded for my personal listening, all of the episodes. Just Another Fanboy.
Crazy.
The only one that I've done that way so far. So that's the mark that it made at the time. I was like, what? You're not good? Okay, well, we got to fix this.
And thank God you did, because I sure as hell lost them. So I had them all on DVDs at one point, and I have no idea where they went. So.
Oh, you got them. They're probably in the attic with the comic books somewhere.
Yeah, probably. But fact of the matter is, most computers you buy nowadays no longer have a DVD drive. I know my laptop doesn't. So
no, neither does mine. And I have all. I'm looking at probably. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to say how many. Too many DVDs to not have a DVD drive. So that's why a year or two ago for Christmas, the wife got me an external. So yeah. I mean, I need to
do that.
I never thought that. Oh yeah, they'll stop putting optical drives in computers. It's like, no, this is the thing. Well, I've got 2 laptops here in front of me that.
Yeah, I need to get one of those external ones because I have just a lot of music from local bands that put out stuff in the 90s when I was playing that, you know, it's not streaming anywhere because they're local garage bands that put out CDs and junk. And I have them, me and one of my other bandmates, you know, would digitize a lot of their stuff off tape and junk like that. And it's like, I've got DVDs of them now, but I got no way to listen to them. So who'd have thought?
Those optical drives now are pretty cheap. The externals,
yeah,
40, 50 bucks. I mean, so it's, and actually I've got one, this one that I've got, it just powers off a USB. You don't even have to plug it into an outlet.
Nice.
So
cool. Does your cat stick their butt in your face a lot?
Moving around, they don't care where it goes. Yes.
The little one, the two cats that we've had for a while, I've never encountered that. But the new one, the little one, she often will I'll just be sitting here, you know, working. I kick back and I'm working, and she'll just suddenly, just like she drops from the ceiling, but she's jumping into my lap. And the first thing she does is she comes up here, turns around, and sticks her butt right in my face. And it's like, I'm trying to work. And just recently, I've noticed other people like on Instagram or Twitter talking about their cat sticking their butts in their faces. So
and I think it's a comfort thing, turning their back to you. In essence, it doesn't bother them. So, but yeah, it's like I don't want to see your ass. You can sit down, that's fine.
It means,
but
it means they trust me. You know, when they show you their belly, that means they trust you.
Yep.
And I just recently learned about the slow blink. If they close your eyes around you or just give you kind of a slow blink, that means they trust you.
Okay. They're not watching you to make sure you don't jump them.
Yeah, that means they can let their guard down around you.
Okay. I don't think I'd run into that one. Okay.
All right. Okay. This time I really mean it. I'm gonna go.
Okay, man.
Talk to you later, Doug. Talk to you. Oh, I should probably end the. We're still transmitting
the live stream. Yeah. Are we going to do this again next week, or do you want to wait?
Let's go the week after next.
Okay.
Every time, you know, I told my kids last week, I said, I'm podcasting tonight, but we're only going to do one episode. So, but that means we're going to have to podcast again next week. So it's like today, I'm like, I'm podcasting tonight. And they're like, and one of them says, how many are you just doing one episode tonight? And I said, no, we're going to do like 3 or 4. And she goes, and I said, look, would you rather me do one episode every Tuesday or 3 or 4 episodes like every third Tuesday? And she's like, oh, fine, whatever. You know? Like neither. I just don't want you to do either.
I don't want it at all. Well, that won't happen, but okay.
All right, let me Doug, bye. I'm going to stop this live feed.
Thanks for hanging in there, man.